then whether and when I can come back or rather travel freely is also.
I don't think this is where it's going to be quite challenging even for psychologists, like how the situation is going to unfold, the continued behavioral care that we need to take and the well-being at some level, right? And even offering our own services through a alternate modality like this. There are several implications. At least for speaking for myself, I'm learning a lot of things, yet to gain experience. I wish I was some 15 years younger, like many of the participants, who are more adept with using this technology, unlike me. Even introduction to smartphone is quite recent for me.
Yeah. And the different platforms also. It's not just one platform which one has to be.
But
so like if you look at the mode of presentation from back to OSP sheets to project to that is fine. But then this is you have a Zoom and Google Meet and Join Meet.
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely. And look at that. Who would have thought last year that we would be not traveling to West Bengal like this and still able to give a seminar, technology. Thanks to technology.
Sir, we have with us our DPO sir as well as our director IQAC. Honoring sir, we have with us Professor Thomas Kishore, Professor Manikam, Professor Prathama Chaudhary. Sir,
here, so I express my gratitude to them and welcome them all.
Sir, and also our Honorable Vice Chancellor sir has joined the meeting. Good afternoon, sir. All our resource persons are here, sir.
Namaskar.
Namaskar.
Namaskar, sir.
Namaskar.
আপনি এই কার্যক্রমের জন্য সময় নিয়েছেন, এটা খুব ভালো লাগছে।
এটা সবাই মিলে করেছে, আমি ওদের সঙ্গে আছি।
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. And we have our registrar sir and Honorable Vice Chancellor sir with us. So we can start the program. I request Anurna to kindly take over from now. Anurna, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here. Am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible. So over to you.
Okay. Good afternoon, respected dignitaries, eminent speakers, my senior and junior friends and colleagues of the academia and beyond. I welcome you all to the national webinar on Mental Health and Wellbeing for All, organized by the Department of Applied Psychology in collaboration with Internal Quality Assurance Cell, Center for Studies in Clinical Psychology, and Center for Counseling and Positive Psychology, Kazi Nazrul University, to celebrate World Mental Health Day 2020. World Mental Health Day, a program of the World Federation for Mental Health, was observed for the first time on 10th October 1992. Dr. Roshanlal Devangan will be speaking on this shortly. As all of us are going through a challenging phase due to the global crisis resulting out of the COVID-19 pandemic, characterized by the monotony induced by nationwide lockdowns, restrictions on movements, etc. The risk and uncertainty embedded in the current scenario is evoking mental health and well-being challenges to everyone. This year's theme for World Mental Health Day celebration is Mental Health for All, Greater Investment, Greater Access. Mental health is a human right, and it's high time that mental health is made available for all. Awareness about mental health and its services should become a reality for everyone, everywhere. We are extremely fortunate to have with us today Professor Dr. L.S.S. Manikam, Professor Dr. Thomas Kishore, and Professor Dr. Prathama Chaudhuri as resource persons for this webinar. We are extremely eager to listen from you all. We express our immense pleasure at having you in this webinar. And I would request the participants once again to kindly mute their video and their speakers for an uninterrupted experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Ananya ma'am, for such a lovely introduction for today's webinar. So without further delay, I take this opportunity to introduce our respected registrar, sir, Professor Dr. Shantanu Kumar Ghosh, to deliver the welcome address. Dr. Shantanu Kumar Ghosh is currently the Professor of Mathematics and in addition,
video on
registrar in
তোমরা কি আমায় দেখতে পাচ্ছো? কথা শুনতে পাচ্ছো কি? Can you hear me?
Yes ma'am, we can hear you.
এখন দেখো তো কথা শোনা যাচ্ছে? কিন্তু আমি কেন তোমাদের কথা শুনতে পাচ্ছি না? মিটিং ইজ আন্ডারওয়ে না?
Yes ma'am.
মানে কেউ কি কথা বলছে না বলছে না? সেটাই তো। করো।
Professor Dr. Shantanu Kumar Ghosh to deliver the welcome address. Dr. Shantanu Kumar Ghosh is currently the Professor of Mathematics and in addition charge of Registrar in Kazi Nazrul University. He has been teaching for more than 18 years in UG and PG levels in the Department of Mathematics. He received Devang Mehta National Education Award as Best Professor in Mathematics in 2 consecutive years, 2017 and 18. Recently, he has been awarded with the prestigious Shiksha Ratna Award from the Government of West Bengal in September 2020. He has published many research papers in several international journals of repute. Sir, over to you.
Honorable Vice Chancellor Sir, Professor Sadhan Chakraborty, Professor L.S.S. Manikam, Professor in Clinical Psychology, Professor Thomas Kishore, Additional Professor of Clinical Psychology, National Institute of Mental Health and Neurosciences, Bengaluru, Professor Prathama Chaudhuri, Professor Department of Psychiatry, Calcutta National Medical College and Hospital, Kolkata, Professor Sadhan Chakraborty, our Honorable Vice Chancellor Sir, Professor Anindashakar Purakayastha, Director of Internal Quality Assurance Cell of Kazi Nazrul University, and all the faculty members of the Department of Applied Psychology, Coordinator Dr. Roshanlal Devangan, Ananya Pal, Urbi Mukherjee, Shubhabrata Poddar. It gives me immense pleasure and honor to me to welcome you all in this webinar on mental wealth and well-being for all, organized by the Department of Applied Psychology in collaboration with IQAC, Center for Studies and Clinical Psychology, and Center for Counseling and Positive Psychology. It gives me immense pleasure to me to welcome Professor Manikam, Professor in Clinical Psychology and Honorable Director, CAPS, Tirupurapuram, and Director of Research and Training in Kerala. It gives me Thomas Kishore, Additional Professor in Clinical Psychology, National Institute of Mental Health and Neurosciences, Bengaluru, Karnataka, India. We are really thankful to you, sir. I feel honored to welcome Professor Department of Psychiatry, Calcutta National Medical College and Hospital, Kolkata, West Bengal. I would like to welcome our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Sir, Professor Sadhan Chakraborty, without whose support and encouragement, it would be impossible to organize this program. I would also like to welcome Professor Anindo Shekhar Purakasto, who is presently Director of Internal Quality Assurance Cells of this university. I also welcome all the faculty members of this of the Department of Applied Psychology to this webinar. Lastly, I want to welcome all the participants who have joined in this webinar on mental health and well-being for all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now, I would like to invite Dr. Roshan Lal Devangan, the organizing chairperson of today's webinar. Dr. Devangan is currently the coordinator of Department of Applied Psychology, and he is also the coordinator of Center for Studies in Clinical Psychology under Faculty of Science, Kazi University. I request Dr. Devangan to say a few words about World Mental Health Day. Over to you, Roshan Lal.
Thank you, Urvi. I will request all the participants to kindly mute their speaker if they are not speaking. So, okay. Namaskar, good afternoon. In this pandemic situation, many issues are being discussed globally. Issue of slowness of economy, poor health facilities, halting of educational programs, and social chaos. Actually, in this pandemic situation, we have discussed and we are discussing many things. In lighter note, we discussed how to prepare dalgona coffee, how to prepare puchka, how to clean our homes. So each and every subject, actually, we are discussing. But on serious note, one major issue which is being discussed in all over the world, that is issue of mental health arised in this pandemic situation. But the big question is this: was there any point of time mental health was a serious concern before this pandemic? If you look back the data, 2 years back, India was among top countries for increased rate of suicide. And still, India's ranking is 19th among 200 countries for the increased rate of suicide. If you see National Mental Health Survey 2016, there were 15% of Indian people requiring clinical treatment for depression. And still, today, there are around 30 crore people, they are requiring treatment, clinical treatment for depression. India is among those countries who has poor management of disability caused by mental illness. So this is just not the pandemic situation. Actually, if we go back, still mental health issue was a serious concern, and today still it is a serious concern. So actually we are piling upon those cases which we couldn't do anything about. Another thing is that, is mental health issue a serious concern only for mental health professional, or is it the same case for general people and laymen? Take this webinar as an example. This national webinar is open for all. There is no educational criteria, there is no age criteria, and our Honorable Vice Chancellor has said that this program will be registration without registration fees. So it is open for all. But still, if you see, 90% of participants are, 90% of the participants are from field of mental health and allied sciences. So the awareness and sensitivity has still not reached to the general people and laymen. And then the third thing is our perception of mental health issues. Still in India, the prevailing perception is based on medical model. And if you say this is the illness model, we know that mental health is not the opposite of mental illness. Anxiety, no depression. So absence of anxiety and depression is not guaranteeing mental health and well-being. So again, we have to shift somewhere from mental illness to well-being. If you want to prevent mental well-being or mental health, we have to move forward. Today, in the occasion of World Mental Health Day. Actually, World Mental Health Day is celebrated every year, 10th of October. I'm not going for the history. So, but because of our ongoing examination and some office work, we couldn't organize the program that time. So, we about different issues. I welcome all the participants and encourage them for their collaborative discussion so that we can get better sense, better insight, and we will be able, I think this is my expectation, that we will be able, at least we can facilitate the information to the general people. I welcome you all again in this webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Devangan, for your kind words. With this, I would like to invite Professor Anindya Shekhar Purokayastha. Sir is presently the Director IQAC and Professor in the Department of English. He is a very eminent scholar and he has reputed publications through books and Nehru Fulbright Fellow. And he has been a visiting fellow in numerous international universities. And Sir has a keen interest in the mental health issues, apart from his general thing. He's a very modest man and he has always been support to us. With this, and Sir has also won the prestigious Shiksha Ratna Award previous year. So with this, I would like to request Professor Anindya Shekhar Purokayastha to kindly say a few words. Thank you, sir. Hello, sir.
Yes, I got disconnected for some time.
Okay, sir. Sir, you can, sir.
Should I begin?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and with respect to the Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Shadhan Chakraborty, and my warm regards to the esteemed Registrar and the Honorable resource persons, the speakers will be speaking today, and my warm greetings to my colleagues in the Department of Applied Psychology and the Center for Positive Psychology, and all the other colleagues and other students and participants for today's event. As part of the organizing team, I really feel very happy today to be a part of this event, which I consider a very important one, given the fact that we are passing through a phase of what we call the pandemic. But I guess all of you will agree with me that mental health is an issue that has been festering for a long time. It's such a big problematic for all of us, yet it is not addressed the way it should be. While we were talking about the organizing part of this event, we were, focusing on how mental health is an unaddressed pandemic. It is a silent killer. We all know that. And yet, socially, institutionally, we do not pay much attention to it. It is really good to see that Kazi Nazrul University, under the convincing and robust leadership of our Honorable Vice Chancellor, who is himself a professor of philosophy and who is also himself a practicing psychological counselor, attaches a lot of importance on the issue of mental health. And that's why we have the Department of Applied Psychology in our university. In addition to that, we also have the Center for Positive Psychology. And I'm really happy to note that our university has decided to organize and to observe the Mental Health Day today, and keeping in mind also the World Health Organization's directive that this year the motto and the objective of the World Mental Health Day should be how to think of investing further in the domain of mental health awareness and redressal of the problems related to mental health, and how we can maximize greater accessibility to mental health related help, counseling, and other things. I think there cannot be a better way to address this issue institutionally and academically than a university coming forward with all its efforts to mark the day, to disseminate greater awareness about mental health, related issues and how we can engage with problems of mental health, or how we can maximize awareness, can disseminate it for all stakeholders of society, how we can generate that consciousness about mental health within the university and outside the university. And as part of the internal quality assurance cell, I really feel very happy and encouraged that institutionally our university is doing this. And we are really thankful to our Vice Chancellor and also to other authorities in the university who constantly encourage us to organize things like this. And I also congratulate my colleagues in the Department of Applied Psychology who invested all their efforts to make it a success. Lastly, I once again extend my warm welcome and thanks to all the honorable speakers, and I really hope that this is going to be a wonderful event today. Thank you. Over to you, Subrata.
Shubhabrata, can I continue?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Thank you so much, Anindada. I would now like to introduce our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Sir Professor Shadhan Chakraborty. He is extremely well known in the field of philosophy, but his other interests lie in contributing to educational reforms and spreading awareness regarding mental health issues. He is a practicing psychological counselor. He has done his postgraduate diploma in psychological counseling from Jadavpur University, and also he has done his MSc in applied psychology from Annamalai University. Through his long association with the Center for Counseling Services and Studies in Self-Development, Jadavpur University since 2004, and Shomikhoni Gold Park, Kolkata, Sir has worked for several decades now in creating a support system, a network of mental health workers. He has helped in opening up counseling centers, providing counseling centers with counselors, designing curriculum and framing courses for various certificate, diploma and degree programs. He has been the coordinator of the UGC career-oriented course on stress management during 2010. Sir has a long list of publications in various books and journals of repute. He has written both on topics of philosophy as well as psychology. I would like to mention some of his writings concerning mental health and well-being. His book, Belief and Well-being, An Exploration of Indian Psyche. Another book, Ethical Issues in Mental, this is an edited volume, Ethical Issues in Mental Health Services. And some of his articles include On the Academic Stress of Students and its Remedy with special reference to memory and motivation, Mental Health, Rights and Justice, Belief and Well-being in Indian Culture, a search for the root in Upanishad. Sir is also writing a series of books on introductory psychology for the students in Bangla, because there are really very less works that are done in Bangla on this. So it's the book is really great for students. So sir is working on that. The first book of the series is already out. We cannot stress enough the importance of having him as our mentor and guide in every sense of the term. We at Kazi Nazrul University take mental health very seriously and are striving to take Sir's values and ideas forward through the various functioning of our different centers. We are trying to spread a resonance of positivity among the Kazi Nazrul University fraternity and to the society at large to generate awareness, to promote well-being, and to disseminate coping strategies for various mental health issues. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Ananda, for your kind words for introducing me. I agree. I fully agree with you that I have done all these things. But believe me, I was not really aware of all these things before you began telling all these things about me. I was re-exploring myself through your words. Actually, I believe that going forward in the right direction is the right thing. At the current situation, it is very appropriate to have a detailed discussion on the topic of this webinar. It is very important to discuss. And I'm really very happy to see that eminent speakers, Professor Manikam, Professor Kishore, Professor, to participate in this webinar. I, on behalf of the university, extend deep gratitude to all of them. I appreciate this endeavor. The organizers from the Department of Applied Psychology, the Center for Counseling and Positive Psychology, and also the Internal Quality Assurance Cell of the university. This endeavor is a commendable one, and through this program, I'm sure that we will benefit a lot in viewing ourselves and viewing others in the proper perspective, so that we can enable ourselves to continue our living in a better way. Everything depends on our perception. We know that whatever we do, verbally or non-verbally, depends upon our perception. So how we perceive things we do, and how we can make our place a better place for living. All of us know in the year 2015, the member states of United Nations adopted certain sustainable goals, which include, apart from economic development, etc., the goal of good health and well-being. It is the third sustainable goal in the list, and the member states, the United Nations, have started planning for achieving these goals by 20. We are in 2020 now. 5 years have elapsed. I don't know whether we have made a realistic effective plan for achieving this goal in our country. Mental Health Act has been published in our university a few years back. In every state, a body is supposed to be constituted for developing, so this is a must. And this system includes resources, and human resources, and establishing a proper network for providing services to people, generating awareness important, which are to be done without much delay. I hope the eminent speakers in this webinar will be much more enlightened, and I extend my best wishes to the organizers and all of you who are participating in this webinar that it will be a great success. Your endeavor will be very, very successful. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your best wishes and your kind words of a Mental Health Award for the year 2014 by the Indian Association of Clinical Psychologists. He served as an editor in special issue of the Journal of Intellectual Disability on service delivery models for people with intellectual disabilities in developing countries. Dr. Kishore has in reputed high-impact national and international journals and also contributed chapters in books published by reputed international publishers. A fellow member of the expert committee in clinical psychology rehabilitation council. 2010, he served as a member of expert committee on development of scale for assessing disability in autism for the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment by the Government of India. Sir, over to you.
Sarvapratame, Honorable Vice Chancellor Sir, Registrar Sir, and my colleagues from the Department of Psychology, ये प्रोग्राम में हमके भाग देवार जन्नो अपना के सबाई के धन्यवाद एवं आंतरिक शुभेच्छा जानाची. Now I'll shift to English. That much only I can speak in Bengali. Thank you for very kind words, the introduction and everything. And this is the need of our. I'm extremely delighted to know how beautifully Vice Chancellor Sir has set the tone for today's talk. The very little that I have experienced, gathered from my colleagues, learned from books, mentored by my teachers, and most importantly, taught by the children and their families is what I'm going to put across. Therefore, it might sound a little familiar to you all, and kindly excuse me on that account. This talk I'm going to divide into three segments. First, to present to you the current scenario of child mental health at the national level and a brief reference to what's happening in West Bengal and how we can expand the services. What are different approaches wherein I've taken the developmental, socio-ecological, and a special focus on the school mental health program through the World Health Organization's model. And as professionals, particularly multidisciplinary, especially psychology or clinical psychologists, what we can do to promote mental health and well-being. We are all aware that at the national level, we know from the National Mental Health Survey and other studies that have been conducted in the past decades, that nearly 7.3 children aged 13 to 17 years suffer from various mental disorders, both severe as well as emotional disorders such as depression, anxiety, and other range of disorders. And prevalence in urban is almost double that of the rural. The factors I'll be discussing later, but this is the reality. Coming to the nature of the disorders, there are depression, agoraphobia, and autism spectrum disorders. If you do this math, that it will go above 3%, that is highest among any other psychiatric disorders in the child population, psychotic disorders, and anxiety disorders. The reason for highlighting the intellectual and developmental disorders is that the mental health programs and policies, all our efforts have to give a lot of importance to intellectual as well as developmental disorder because the magnitude is equally high. However, in the mainstream mental health, cutting across, whether it is, I'm not mentioning the disciplines, when we talk about psychological well-being and offering services, this particular population is always at the neglected zone. And alarmingly, nearly 258,075 people in India committed suicide in 2012, among which a large proportion were students under the age of 19 years. So it should drive us to think that perhaps learning, education, learning context, or the stressors associated with that, or maybe various other developmental related issues could have either mediated or maybe precipitated this kind of situation. In any case, it's very heartening to note that professionals cutting across different universities have come together today to deliberate upon such an important issue. However, sadly, less than 1% of the children and adolescents receive any kind of treatment, let alone any multi-speciality intervention. And moving further, like why we need to really address these issues, there are both direct as well as indirect costs are associated with that. The economic cost itself, that anywhere the direct treatment issues stand around 4% of the gross national product. The indirect costs include, particularly children are concerned, the caregivers, especially the parents, are affected. Now we know in the COVID situation we are seeing when children are not going to school, how the families have to spend extra time in supervising, arranging their routines, schedules, and also even if they are forced to go to job, always the worry of child safety and well-being, looms large in their mind. So the well-being of the caregivers and the additional loss of productivity and loss of economical opportunities also further perpetuate the condition. So when we talk of policy, we also need to dialogue, open a debate with the policymakers. It's not just that we are going to help individuals by taking appropriate measures, that we are also preventing various economic losses that are also indirect in nature, which are not usually looked into. Coming to the West Bengal scenario, it is not particularly unique to West Bengal, but most states do not have updated, accurate data related to the adults from the National Mental Health Survey says the prevalence of mental disorders are high in the adult population is one of the highest among as compared to other countries in the country. While people were talking about having my little experience of working in West Bengal. I have this firm belief it is not that the psychiatric morbidity is high there. It perhaps the people's awareness about the mental illnesses. Therefore, the need to seek appropriate services might be very high. Therefore, the professionals working in other parts of the country, particularly in down south or maybe Delhi or other parts, would really watch, particularly at any given point of time, people from the eastern part of the India, very especially from West Bengal, constitute roughly around 20% of the population in any given OPD. Meaning that if you get 100 patients, out of which 20 can be easily from West Bengal because they want that kind of quality services. So I would say it is more than expect, nearly a prevalence of 6.4% in the community samples and 23.33% in the school population. As this meta-analytic study has come in 2014 and by Malhotra and Patra. Again, surprisingly, this is the only meta-analysis in terms of on the prevalence as well as the magnitude of the problem. So what does that mean? There is still a scope for us to conduct similar studies, number one. Number two, if you look at these figures, that our services are more required in the community, not in the institutional level. So our services need to cater and reach to the population and rather institutions and the facilities. Then the question comes, if the magnitude is like this, how are we going to expand these services? And being a developmental psychologist within clinical psychology background training, I would like to pose this question: can developmental approach provide at least some answers? What is the need? It is the data presented by the World Bank in countries across the world. 250 million children under age 5 never reach their full developmental potential. That means born okay, but various other reasons. It could be psychosocial adversities or preventable medical causes or adverse environment and not so responsive care, lack of educational opportunities, abilities, receptive language, that is the ability to understand someone else's language, expressive language, higher cognitive abilities, and most importantly, the socio-emotional development. The maximum skills are developed by the age of 5 years, and limited will go up to adolescence, and the remaining thing will be to late adolescent. That means perhaps these critical skills or competencies are needed for an individual to successfully navigate through the environment and make meaning out of their life. And all of them are developed during the early childhood and also have direct link to various kinds of personality disorders, emotional disorders, and psychotic disorders which we see, and also behavioral or even substance abuse and even gadget addiction or video game addictions, etc. We can somewhere pinpoint certain deficits across these domains. So therefore, investing in these things and early child development, it is not just when the child is born. From this diagram that is put forth by Gratham and Migral et al. In 2007, the efforts have to start right from preconception. Like again, that when we are looking at the healthy adults who are going into parentage and motivating them to adopt healthy lifestyles, be ready to be parents to nurture the children. These children will grow up very well and also ultimately grow up into healthy adults. Then in this context, what we see invariably as clinicians, whether we are psychologist, counselor, educator, medical doctors, we usually see children, either they reported upon by somebody, it could be parents, usually parents and families, or teachers, and rare cases, community health workers and social workers, educator, where we see the child's health is affected. He or she has not reached their optimum development. There is school-related issues are there. Well-being is affected, and their capacity is diminished, and there are other consequences. If you look back at a technique in cognitive behavior therapy called a downward arrow technique, behind each individual who is in a trouble, or whose development is not fully happen, or children who are either in conflict of law or in certain measure, we can always say it is just that they are product of certain adverse conditions that have happened, or lack of certain opportunities across any of these four dimensions. Out of this, the immediate factor that we need to understand is the optimal nutrition and response caregiving. So we can take pride that most of the time we do feel bad about certain states, certain state of affairs in our country, but either another meal program through ICDS or midday meal program in most of the schools is taking care of the nutritional aspect, so that the child is not pushed into child labor, or the families need not to worry about of losing an earning member with government, so the child can study and develop, and also the responsive caring. So these two are very, very important. The child can access these two through the family depends on the education, caregiving, and nutrition. And again, these are determined by the socio-economic political context in terms of policies, employment to the social security, housing, and political commitment, etc., which translate into enabling environment for a family to live. One of the questions that often is confronted by people who come from outside to NIMHANS, doctor doesn't mean that I'm a medical doctor. Please tell us that if you want us to move to Bangalore, we will do that because we want to get this kind of services. At least that somewhere the perception is that their environment is that they are even thinking of relocation. So in this process, what happens? At least will miss out on all opportunities like this, and it's very easy to go shift and then easily after growing child, a lot of reasonable accommodations and adjustment need to be made. Now moving on to within the child, again I take adolescence as another which we need to identify. Here, as I explained in the previous slide, that from birth we see peak plasticity for sensory, then motor and language, and the child is ready for with higher cognitive abilities to deal both the internal environment as well as to deal with the external environment, that could be family, school, and community. What happens if the children, before these skills are developed, and if the child is pushed into certain activities for which he is not ready, that's one. Or any disruption, as much as you can see that by adolescence that there are peak stages for various competencies are possible, it also exposes to various kinds of risk factors and vulnerabilities. So therefore, on one side, we need to catch children before these critical and sensitive periods are over. At the same time, they do not often end up for seeking the services of mental health because they all go around, and also invariably that the referral will come through the school. The reason is that because health problems are invisible, there will not be anything very obvious for people to identify. The only thing that we see, particularly in case of internalizing disorder, what people would think is that this child would eventually overcome. This could be part of the temperament or something. And only when the child is failing in the school or the interpersonal adjustment is not adequate, that is when the adult caregivers, including family members and teachers, will start thinking that there is something wrong with the child, and then we need to take him for additional support. So the current literature is very clear that most mental problems have onset before adolescence. Major psychiatric disorders including, and also the foundations for future substance-related issues, name everything that is in the classificatory system of psychiatric disorder. We know that the roots are in the childhood as well as adolescence. So one of the things that is very elusive to mental health is prevention is not possible, but rather prevention is possible in case if we target population in these critical stages. And why particular adolescents are vulnerable? As I said, like these problems are very high among adolescents, and also poor academic, occupational, psychological, and social functioning, and importantly, suicide and accident-related mortality are both the leading causes of death in this age group. This is from Indian statistics. And more than 50% of burden of mental disorders in adulthood has its onset in the adolescence. So therefore, preventive work could be done. How that could be done is going to be my next segment of my presentation. And the magnitude of mental problem per se, this is more or less matching with what Malhotra et al. Has said, that in the as far as adolescent population is concerned, this is slightly, it's the same. That is 6.5% in the community and 23.3% in the school sample. And you might see why it is reversing. Reversing is because earlier when I talk about child population, because children would be in the community, the trend is reverse. But the moment the same children come to the school, we see that the percentages are in the reverse order. Therefore, in case two things become very important for management, any kind of expansion of the mental health services should begin with the community, in which the family is an integral part, and also the schools is the next level. What are the mental health determinants? How do we go about strengthening that? We are all familiar with this one, that healthy sleep pattern. Again, the answers come at a very basic level, at a very behavioral level. So quite early on, how do we promote healthy sleeping pattern? That is also nighttime sleep, not the daytime sleep. But daytime rest also is needed. Taking regular exercises, appropriate amount of physical activities, and stress management and coping, given that we all will be confronted with daily hassles and day-to-day basis. It could be catching up early bus to the school, finishing breakfast in time, or completing our homework, or there was an issue with a friend which we need to sort out, etc., etc. And then there could also be life events. So how children are taught right from early on to manage the stress without getting overwhelmed at one side, and also not to ignore on the other side, and also effectively cope with the situation that is culturally appropriate and also effective is something that we need to offer. And problem solving skills, particularly as the children grow up, they learn various easy methods or what they think is effective, such as behavioral addiction, risk-taking behaviors, which they think is going to alleviate that problem. Because of the temporary cessation of high excitability, it gets conditioned over a period of time. They are likely to repeat the same behavior for no adequate or. And at the social level, interpersonal skills are important. I just give the management of emotions, that is regulation of the emotions. And also it's very important how culture sees the negative emotions displayed by individual. Right from early on, we are all familiar with how conventionally we are taught boys don't cry, or you don't get angry, or okay, don't feel sad, things will go away. As a situation, the time will heal. None of these things are going to really be helpful that way. We know mental health professionals. Rather, one needs to understand, identify the negative emotions, and also safely regulate them, and at the same time also find one's own avenues for experiencing positive emotions that are healthy, socially appropriate, and also that is productive. That would be very excellent if that is possible. So interpersonal skills is very, very important to identify sources of support. Sometimes we also come across children ending up at the wrong source to get validated. This also happens from late childhood to adolescence, wherein some of their confusions and also needs, or maybe their concerns, they won't be able to open up to trustworthy adults like family members, parents, or teachers because of the shame, guilt, or maybe that they might think that they're responsible for it. They will be misconstrued as that they're responsible for the situation, or it could be morally judged. Then they will fall back on the same peer group who also cognitively, emotionally are still developing. That means they do not have adult-like maturation. And sometimes more dangerously, if they fall into the hands of anonymous sources. People nowadays, we are aware of how online impersonation is quite possible to befriend children and adolescents, and then there are other risks, and also cyberbullying. These things are very, very common. So to experience fruitful relationship, the social support is very, very important, and the foundations of that are how one can have interpersonal cognition. And the supporting environment, including family, neighborhood, community, and society, that is, environment is equally important. So when we talk about promoting the mental health, we need to be thinking about personal, social, and environmental factors. Again, what do I mean by that? I would like to give an example of the work that I have done in West Bengal when I was long ago, I was working there. The cases of intellectual disability, this was the experience at the National Institute for the Empowerment of Persons with Intellectual Disability located in Banhugli. And whenever we have to go for the community level for identification of people, we get certain requisitions from either government as well as non-government organizations to the participants who are not familiar with the non-governmental agency vibrant culture in West Bengal. They offer excellent services, particularly in intellectual and developmental disabilities. So what we used to do is that they always will have a list with them, and they would have, because already they would have frontline workers such as special educators, some therapists, or very enthusiastic parents who would have identified some people are having even the so-called invisible disabilities and make an identification. The list is made, and the NGOs will be in regular touch with them. Because belonging to the same local area, they know when the families will be free, when they are available, and also they promote mobilization. And invariably, this study that is published in an international journal indicates that when the same list is made, like through government camps, I'm not criticizing here the government approach. When government camps are done, they would simply say people with disabilities will be given a certificate and so on, so have to become. And many people will come expecting that perhaps government is going to give them something, money or various other social beneficial scheme. But on the contrary, when an NGO was involved, they would have clearly identified the most probable case of intellectual and developmental disability. They have coordinated looking at the transportation, looking at the economical and other situations of the family, including mobilization. There is an anchor between them and the service provider agency. The accuracy of identifying people is more than 85%. That means if 100 children are presented to me as people with intellectual disability, it's high likely that more than 85 people would be there. So that would reduce the kind of very high level of expertise is required in identification, number one. And at a go, the very crucial piece of certification that is needed is available to them too. And three, based on which they are entitled for social benefits. All these things are possible when we look at the socio-ecological model. So that means when we are talking about the mental health, the efforts need not be just on individual basis as it happens in the Western settings, where the more emphasis is on the individualized self-empowerment as compared to collective societies like ours, where our well-being is interdependent on the community, to the ecological systems in which we are part. So therefore, fostering healthy relationship, starting with the families and then the schools and the community, including neighborhoods, safe neighborhood. The stigma, when we talk about the destigmatization process, have to start right from schools and the community, etc. Here again, I put West Bengal as a very good example, though I've seen it in Odisha, Assam, and other parts of northeastern states, where at community level, there will be Shangho, who will be interact with the community people, organize various activities, perhaps with a notable exception of Kerala and maybe in some other southern parts. Otherwise, I found this very unique to this part of the country. So wherein the community also actively participate in various well-being programs in which psychological and mental health also takes and also society as such. If you really look at the prevalent norms about, there won't be, if the society believes that it is still stigmatized and low pagal bolbe, and if people have this apprehension that somebody will say them that they're crazy or mentally ill, people don't come forward. So how the society is viewing this, what are the prevalent norms, how they're promoting mental health also is equally important. So when we are talking about expansion, we need to move ahead just focusing on the individual to building up the relationship, building up the community, and also negotiating at the society level to change the prevalent norms and the policy decisions. Since I said majority of the children nowadays, thanks to the national policy and education also, are going to be in larger number in the schools at a very younger level onwards. So it is like an inverted pyramid. If you see that at a very top level, the large majority need general, simple techniques such as mental being. I am very happy to hear Honorable Vice Chancellor Sir and also the Director of Internal Quality Council who mentioned that there are various programs at the Nazrul, Kazi, Nazrul University, and I'm sure many universities also have such facilities, but this is what is needed to promote mental health well-being at the very top level. And as the intensity of the programs are only needed with very negligible population. So it is the mental health knowledge and attitude and the behavior of all the stakeholders, right from the topmost to the lowest level, not in terms of the power or anything, in terms of the involvement with people, I mean to say. So involvement from top to bottom is very important. How they are pursuing it and also promoting that is very important. So here I appreciate the Department of Applied Psychology and its associates, the wonderful initiative that they have taken. And the psychosocial problems, various adversities are only in 20 to 30%. Coming to the core psychiatric disorders, that it is only 2 to 3%. This is where, when you talk about the professional treatment, in terms of it could be medication, I don't want to go further into that area. Madam Professor Ma'am is there as a co-panelist, and also clinical psychology interventions are only needed for very negligible population. The large group is promotion of the psychosocial competencies, mental health education, psychosocial interventions are what needed. This is the last segment of my talk, that as professionals, we have certain responsibilities. Number one, data building. Whenever we talk about presentation of any data, a large chunk we need to unfortunately depend on the Western data. But thanks to the efforts in the last 2 to 3 decades, we see at least to a reasonable degree, we have robust data, at least in certain areas or certain matters are concerned. However, as Professor Malhotra points out in her meta-analysis study in 2014, that meta-analysis in various areas have to happen in every 10 years. This is where university departments and hospital-based mental health facilities, educational institutions should collaborate in generating that kind of data. When I say data, I also would like to appeal to the young researchers, clinicians who are part of this program. It doesn't require too sophisticated lab space or rigorous scientific, statistical parameters. All it requires is that how objectively, without any bias, you are describing certain phenomenon and presenting it. So the data could be at a very basic level. It could be a single case report, which I have seen, which was different from what is noted in the literature. And I encourage the young participants to kindly present that in the form of any journal or in a scientific fora, or writing it in even a general periodicals and newspapers, etc. So every data is good data as long as it is objective and unbiased. Working through the multi-sectoral and multi-level cooperation. As individual professionals, professional identities are very important at some level, but at the same time, we need to step out of that comfort and negotiate and interact with other professionals. So from a psychologist point of view, if I have to say, I cannot expect children to come to the luxury of my clinic. Rather, I need to negotiate with the school authorities, administration level, that it includes not only at the individual level, it is at the community level and the policy level makers. We need to involve. And looking beyond psychiatry, Madam is there from representing psychiatry from Calcutta National Medical College. I request participants not to construe that this is not about the psychiatry. What I mean to say is that it is a tendency for counselors and psychologists just to only work in the core hospital-based institutional kind of psychiatric facility where one is part of the multidisciplinary. However, there are large many conditions which requires us to work with or other medical medicine, general medicine, special, and even other areas also. So look beyond psychiatry and also clinical psychology to address and expand the services. And dissemination of the information is very, very important. I'm very delighted to know that there are publications are being put out from the university. And one of the things that we always need to see, they have to be simple, they need to be practical, they need to be updated. Most importantly, they should be available in the language that to whom it is most important. I cannot give an English literature, English printed text to someone who has never gone to school or who is not familiar with English. So it has to be in their language, and responding to the local needs is very, very important. Here, we might think of many big things, but it has to be, as for example, if the children are coming from even nutritional issues, we need to deliver our mental services through the prism of nutritional resources. Or if somebody is having academic difficulties, the mental services should be through academic difficulties. And also similar things, maybe in one state the needs are very unique. For example, we expect floods in certain regions quite often. Then how we readjust our services according to that. There could be natural calamities, there could be conflicts, there could be other situations. So how do we tailor our services to the local needs? And engaging with policymakers is very important, because whatever may be our apprehension, they are the people who will be influencing the policy, allocating the budget. So again, it is deeply linked to data building. We need to present adequate data, and that we need to bring it to the attention of the policymaker. Certainly, things are going to be much better. And as I said again, while the professional identity could be important, but they should not come at the cost of working in multidisciplinary setting to provide a holistic and overall well-being for the individual. In summary and conclusion, a significant portion of children suffer from mental health issues. Prevalence is higher in school than community at certain ages. So we need to target schools also, including preschools, in the wake of the new national policy on education. And we need to have specific plan for developmental disorders, because they constitute a reasonable percentage among the population with psychiatric conditions. Childhood is defined by key sensitive and critical periods that provide opportunities for preventive and promotional mental health.
You in your endeavor, I think you've got a vision and a mission. I think our support virtually is there, and I think it will continue in the days to come if needed. I have been asked to speak on this particular topic about psychosocial factors of well-being, recognition and realization, with special focus to COVID-19. And I have added a subtitle that awareness of further I don't know, this definition has not been officially elaborated, but I think sooner or later the spiritual component also would come. There are a lot of research which is showing that spirituality has a major, and our ancient thought, the Upanishadic concepts of person also has brought in the relevance of the spiritual part of it, which I may refer to if there is time as we move on. So what I'm trying to say is that it is not just the absence of mental disorders, but it's more than that. So mental health, or in other words, an awareness of what one is going through. I don't know right now what are you aware of? Are you aware of your own self, or the body, or the environment, or you are thinking of tomorrow, or today's evening snacks, or tonight's food, or tomorrow, or about your course, how it's going to be, or tomorrow's assignment, or the exam which is coming up, or about your future. So these are all things which can make us or evoke different kinds of feeling within us, which can disturb our well-being. So I think we need to be aware of what one is going through, and not only that, whether I'm able to cope with the normal stresses of life. I was not able to cope earlier, and then now I have additional stress. So it becomes that it is now the normal stress, the current stress which has come up, which am I able to cope with that? Can I work productively, either from the assignments part as wherever you are actively? That's also an important component of it. And of course, is able to make a contribution to his or her community. So it's not that I individual all by myself, but I have a responsibility to the community around where I'm living. So I need to contribute to that. That all these things taken together would constitute the well-being. Of course, it has our thinking aspects come, our emotions come, our interactions with each other would come, and earning a living and enjoying life is also part of our well-being. So all these things we have to be looked at. And if we are thinking of the well-being of all, we need to have programs or activities to help foster all these components. We know that social and psychological and biological factors determine, probably Professor Prathama Chaudhary would be talking more about the biological factors that can determine our mental health. But it is very important that all these things do have an impact on the well-being. So when we talk about poor mental health, then it's also associated with the social change. So stressful work conditions, gender discrimination, social exclusion, unhealthy lifestyle, physical health, and human rights violations, all this can contribute to our mental health. If you are reading through the newspapers, if you are reading through the news or following the news, you may be aware of the different kinds of things that are happening in different parts of the country or in your own locality, how different things are causing ill health to people individually as well as community. So this is something which we need to look upon, and mental health promotion involves actions that improve psychological well-being. This may involve creating an environment that supports mental health. So my challenge, I was told that it's for the whole university, but I find if the number of the participants logged in are less, and I presume a good number of you may be psychologists. I think you have to create an environment that supports mental health. Often, see the gender equality, the abuse of girls in different parts of the countries were in the news, and I don't know what the psychology departments or the sociology departments are both in hand together, or women as NSS National Service School. National Service Scheme volunteers or other as a group is doing an environment to make this issue and aware of how that is impacting each other and the mental health well-being of the people in general. I think this is something to be taken up and addressed. An environment that respects and protects basic civil, political, socio-economic and cultural rights is fundamental to mental health. So when these are all affected, as we see in different parts of the world, migrations and other areas where there are civil unrest, you know that how the mental health is being affected. So it's a total multidisciplinary or a collective responsibility on our part to respond to this and contribute to the mental health and well-being of the people. So COVID-19 has brought in lots and lots of changes. So we have to get ready for change and for creative adjustment. Even this format of addressing you all is also as a result of this, and it has probably given us an opportunity to creatively adjust to it. And how we creatively adjust would mean that I am able to cope with the stress and I am able to keep my well-being for that matter. Here, this is something which I thought that I need to tell you, because this is the Panchakosas we talk about. If you look at the Taittiriya Upanishad, this is how the Atman or the person is conceptualized. And you have the Mahabhutas, which is the Brahman or the world outside. Please, I'm not talking about the religious connotation of it. Please, Taittiriya Upanishad, and read what the thoughts are given there. You will find that apart from the physical dimension, you will find a psychophysical dimension coming in there, which is the pranamaya question. People in the West are happy in talking about this, the pranamaya question. They say yogic asanas, where the breath is taken into consideration. You don't find this model in the West. If you want to look at the origin of it, you have to look at Taittiriya Upanishad, or from a psychological perspective, you have to look at what Virendra Shekhar Bose from your place, from West Bengal, who talked about this concept in 1930 in the Indian Journal of Psychology. And then we have Ramachandra Rao in 1958 writing about it. And this is a model which we have neglected. I think Professor was talking about, or Vice Chancellor was talking about the ancient Upanishads. I don't know whether Sir was referring to this or not, but this is one thing which I thought that I will share. And the Manomaya Kasha, where the psychological or the sensations are there. Then we have the cognitive or the intellectual dimensions are there. And you have the Anandamaya Kosha, or the spirituality or the beyond. So when we talk about well-being, are we talking about, I usually refer to people as we need to talk about Ananda. This Ananda is something which I don't know whether there's an equivalent of English, whether you can't say even well-being. This is something which people with high creative experience, or any person, if somebody is involved in it, when he's reaching up to the ultimate or the inner higher self of the person, can achieve as per the Upanishads. And our Bindo also had talked about it. But what I'm trying to say is that this is something which we need to look at the different levels and see how best we can address this, including the spirituality of a person to achieve the Ananda or the well-being. So when we talk about the new normal, people are talking about the new normal. So it's not a new normal. I would say that it's we may not be able to go back to the normality. We have to think of the new, which means that we are not going to talk back or go back to the day before. We have to think of the day tomorrow or the next moment. So the lockdown 1 was not lockdown 2, lockdown 3 was not lockdown 4. 4 is different. 5 is different than 4, and we do not know what is yet to come. So here is where some of the questions that have come in. So all these questions have to be seen or answered or reflected upon. I'm not saying that I'm going to give an answer for this, but this is something we need to collectively do that, because no one has got any definite answer for this. It is our own search for finding the well-being of our own self from what we have gathered from different sources. So how is recognition different from realization? How both are necessary to deal with the problem? That's one of the questions that has been posed. So becoming aware of the problem is what means by recognizing the problem. So I will probably say that it is more of, when you say about recognition, it's more of becoming aware. what am I aware of now? My bodily sensation. So right now I'm feeling a bit of a dryness in my throat, which is a bodily sensation. So that may make me, so I recognize it, I become aware of it, and as a result, I move towards the water nearby to take that, or I move to that and get the support and make the contact with my lip, the water with my lips, so that the quench for the water is, or my thirst is quenched. So that's how my awareness, recognizing the problem, and then acting upon it. So is it a real feeling, or was it just within I felt that I need some water? So whether it's a real one, or whether it's a phenomenological one, or whether it's my experience that I'm feeling thirsty, or is something which needs to be looked at. So I'll probably help you do that from the field theory which Kurt Lewin had talked about in 1934. So you have psychologists in your textbook, you may have seen this, the figure and the ground formation. So for me, when I talk to you right now, my figure is a screen. If I was talking to you in person, my figure would have been you, the audience. When the teacher is taking the class, for the students, the teacher is the figure, and the rest of it, the blackboard, everything is there, but that forms the ground. When I talk about Atman and Brahman, if I'm talking about myself, the Brahman or the world outside is the field, which is not there, but it sometimes overlaps. The figure and the figure and the ground may merge together at times, but if it is clear, then it's easy for one to or identify that and look at it. So the field can be considered as a phenomenon. What if the tiger comes, or what if out of my house as it was then the beginning of the lockdown experiment or lockdown period, where I was not allowed to move out because I'm above 60. You have to go also, you have to get things done. So that is something different. So I think of the worst that can happen, or whether it's an ontic field, whether it's a physical, real, or factual existence. So when it is a real existence, like the COVID situation, the virus is there, so it's not my imagination. It's not my imagination that the tiger may come in, or I may get HIV/AIDS because I have passed through near the person who had HIV, or those kind of things. But here is a situation, an ontic field, which is the real exists. So it exists, but how do I handle it? That I need to be recognizing the danger and then escape from it. Rather here I don't have to, because this is my imagination. So if I start running without the cockroach being there, or trying to jump into the bed as some people will do, then that has to be addressed. But whereas when there is a real field, then whether it's when the object is real or it is an real experience, then we have to recognize that and handle that. So becoming aware of the difference between the two is also important, so that we can cope appropriately. Now, the second thing was related to what do we do in terms of restructuring of the family routine and the personal relationships. I know it's very hard I've talked to several people, young people who are talking about not only their family routine, even their personal relationships which were affected because of this COVID lockdown. But as you may have realized, this situation is a new thing for all of us, and we all are learning newer ways of doing it. I used to tell people, even when before the lockdown, in our adolescent days, the school teacher's job was to capture or seize the love letters written by boys to girls or girls to boys, and then make an issue out of it. Later, it became a chatting thing. So people could use a mobile thing to do the pass on messages. So the love letters have all gone. But now the letters are there, but there is no fun in meeting people or the teacher catching or bringing this issue to the classroom and addressing those issues. But we have to think of newer ways of doing it. There are several reports, how people are restructuring their family routine and personal relationships. But I would say that it needs prioritizing. It needs prioritizing because the family routine, earlier if it used to be the father goes for work, mother stays as a homemaker and does the work at home. Children go and come back, and if that used to be the routine, all were stuck at home in the initial days, and some have moved out, but some are asked to stay home and work from home, which is again causing a lot of issues. But we need to think of creative ways of exploring it. I read the news in the news. It was a couple of days before, 2 days before, I think. It was there. Some 55 fishermen. 9 fishermen were in the sea for 55 days. And it's an interesting story how they survived there. Finally, one of them died. 8 of them survived, and they came back to their home. They were in the sea, and they reached Myanmar and then came back. It is, they had used creative ways of, collecting rainwater for drinking water when the water was left, water storage was over, and did a lot of things by catching fish. They survived, and a lot of things. What I'm trying to say is that you need to be creative and using different ways of coping with it. How much more time do I have?
So 5 minutes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think I'm aware of the time now. So maybe sometimes when the issues come, people are like a tomato. You fall down and splash and is lost. But you can be a bouncing ball where you take on the issues that come up and move forward like a bouncing ball. And people who are working from home have got this difficulty of course, salary cut is something which is a real threat. And working from home, they've got 2 issues now. One of them is that, since they're at home, they're available all the time, so they've been given extra work. And 2, they don't have the adequate privacy or as like I said about the figure and the ground, it is all merging together. They're not able to keep separate and work and get to the maximum productivity. And all the houses do not have that privacy enough to work on a professional basis. That's also a challenge for people. Some people have taken on excessive dependency on social media. It's very difficult to control. People have talked about not having excessive screen time even before. But now when people are working from home and the classrooms are at home, then you have to ask students to be in front of the screen. So that's the challenge. And then you have the parents also taking care of both the things. 2 children watching the same screen, or they have different timings. These are all have brought in different issues. Now the community is coming out to support them. That's one plus thing. But we can't say that in every student this facility is there. Some students have even committed suicide because not committed. Sorry, they have taken their life because of not having the adequate facilities, etc. I think, as I said in the beginning, it's the community's response, whereas individuals' response to support the people around and provide what is required in coping with the situation. Homemakers have got added stresses, which I've already mentioned. Some of them are coping with working in the backyard or creatively engaging in tailor. Many of them have taken out into their hobbies, which they have left long time back. Research scholars have talked about the issues of unable to collect data, labs closed, future prospects. But on the other side, some of them have written up papers. Dr. Kishore was suggesting the need to publish papers. So a good number of them have used this opportunity to write up papers or send for publication. COVID patients, I think that phase is slowly moving forward because people have, our recovery rate fortunately is quite good. But stigma was there, but I don't know how it is now. Because when I went home for 3 days to my state, I'm right now in another state because I'm also stuck here. So when I went home, the moment we informed some people that I'm coming to my home in Kerala, they said, please don't visit us. So that's kind of a, people have started that kind of a stigma. I mean, we didn't intend to go, but at the same time, this is the kind of a stigma that could come. So he is coming from Tamil Nadu, where the rate was quite high at that time. So he must be bringing it. So that has come, and that has made not just physically distance, but even social stigma has come in. Teachers have started expressing different kinds of feelings. You know, they are missing the physical classroom. Yesterday, my daughter went to my grandson's school, and the teacher was in tears. You know, the teacher was saying, "We are missing our children." She said that the tears were rolling down her eyes, saying that, you know, it's in the kindergarten I'm talking about, but still that's a kind of a issues which or the challenges with which people are going through. Maybe we need to think of developing some program which can be delivered through channels, I guess, for taking care of these sectors. I think Dr. Thomas Kishore may take this back to him hands and see whether something can be done about it. So some people have engaged in this work, and this gave me an opportunity to bring out or collect 24 psychologists together to bring out a document like this, which has got different chapters on it. Maybe collectively you can do that in coping with the different kinds of issues. I think so this is important. I think this was also one of the questions. How do we help or promote well-being of people who are providing psychological lessons, like the counselors and other people? So in helping others to achieve well-being, I think self-care is very important. So different dimensions of it, as I was saying about the Panchakoshas, all the 5 dimensions need to be addressed. You need definitely good sleep. You need exercise, very much important. You need to look at the 5 senses, the touch, the smell, the sight, taste, sound, which comes under the Manomaya Kosha, which different things are available. So maybe you have to be mindful of doing that, having mindful of eating, and engaging in outdoor activities, which would definitely help. Since lack of time, I'll not go into spirituality is another kind of a thing that can be looked at. And of course, you can probably use butterfly strokes, like, you know, loving oneself for what you have done. So please do not hesitate to reach out for professional help in case you feel that your health issues or your well-being is not the way you want it to be. It's going to the psychologically ill level or psychologically disturbed level, or any of these things are affected, so that you need to reach out for professional help. Individual help is available, online is available. A lot of people are providing online services now, or even professional group help support. Online group support is also available. So well-being and well-being is very, very important. And when we talk about, to conclude, happiness is when what you think, what you say, and what you do are in harmony. That's what Mahatma Gandhi said. So I don't know how many of us have reflected on it before. And I think this talks about the figure and the ground and the mingling of that. And Dalai Lama says happiness can just refer to the pleasure we find on a sensory level, but real happiness is not reduced. Fear is a major source of unhappiness. Yeah, I think we'll listen.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much for such an enlightening speech on the psychosocial factors of well-being. Moreover, I would like to thank you for sharing with us your insights regarding the essential features of global goals or the sustainable development goals, the footprints of Mahatma Gandhi, and the concept of self-love. The way in which you have answered each questions with interesting and practical examples were really helpful for us, and it was really very easy to understand. Incorporating the aspect of spirituality with well-being is seriously an eye-opener for each one of us. Moreover, the concept of Panch Koshas was really insightful. Now, without further delay, I would like to invite our third speaker of this evening, Dr. Prathama Guha Chaudhary ma'am. She would deliver her talk on improving mental health care delivery, Bengal perspective. She is the professor of psychiatry with the West Bengal Medical Education Service. She did her MBBS from Calcutta Medical College, followed by MD Psychiatry at the Central Institute of Psychiatry, Ranchi, India. She also did her DNB in psychiatry. She did a World Health Organization fellowship at the New South Wales Institute of Psychiatry, Sydney. Dr. Chaudhary has several national and international publications to her credit. She is also engaged in private practice with attachments at the Fortis and Amri Hospitals, Kolkata. Ma'am, over to you.
Thank you so much for your kind introduction. At the onset, I must thank the Vice Chancellor, Registrar, and my dear friends, Shubho Broto, who has been instrumental in, I must thank him a lot for having me here as a speaker. And I have been enlightened by my two previous speakers who have spoken so eruditely. Now, from the aspect of a psychiatrist, I will be talking about something more down to earth. That is, what are the nitty-gritties of improving mental health care delivery, and that too from a West Bengal perspective, because I thought people would like to know. As of now, West Bengal still has a very low ratio of mental health professionals per 1 lakh population. We can't compare ourselves to, let's say, Kerala or some of the more better endowed southern states. But that's why I'm here. We'll be sharing with you some of the perspectives. And with that, I would like this to be a very interactive kind of an interaction. You can, at the end of the session, of course, this is not a brick and mortar classroom. So I would have loved people to raise their hands and stop me and ask questions. But that's not possible at the moment. So probably we'll have to wait till the end of this, till the end of my talk. So can I have the next slide, please? Can I have the next slide, please? Yeah, thank you. So as we all know, we have just the previous one. Sorry. Yeah, the previous one. Right. So we have already talked about the actual dimensions of health, which is basically physical, mental, social, and to add to it, the spiritual dimension of health. And as we all know that being healthy mentally does not really mean the absence of disease or infirmity, but we also must have what is today so important, the concept of positive psychology. So just because you don't have depression and you don't have schizophrenia doesn't mean that you are scoring a perfect 10. Probably we need to be happy within ourselves, which means no conflict between what we think, what we do, and what we feel. And also, are we being productive enough? How far we are contributing to this society? As a doctor, however, I'll be concentrating on mainly what are disorders. Mental disorders comprise a broad range of problems with different symptoms. However, they are generally characterized by some combination of abnormal thought, emotion, behavior, and relationship with each other. So you can't be healthy just within yourself. The way you connect with others is also extremely important. Most of these mental health disorders can be successfully treated. There are some red flags which, as students of psychology and psychiatry, you must be careful about. And these red flags, you must also disseminate the knowledge. Like we had a talk from Dr. Kishore, who was saying we must think beyond psychiatry and psychology alone. We have to think about those numerous people who are coming to our outdoor, and then if they don't understand the red flags, the warning signs of pathology, then all these seminars that we are having, all the big books that we are studying, they go to vain. Some of the red flags are very important, which we must educate the common people. Most importantly, as a doctor, I know that I must educate some of my medical colleagues as well, because often they're painfully unaware of the red flags of psychiatric interventions. The next one, please. The next slide. Some of the warning signs: consider 3 things if you suspect an individual may be experiencing a mental health problem. This is important not for you. I know most of you are professionals yourselves, but we need to have very well-written, simple leaflets, which Nimhans has already been doing. When I was in Institute of Psychiatry, we'll come to it later, in Kolkata, we were writing books. So I told them there's no point writing books in English. You may say you are more comfortable writing in English, they said. But I said, okay, fine, allow me, I'll translate. Because it is the people who must understand. You have to put things in their own terms. So you can tell them that these are the 3 important things that you must consider. Intensity. How severe is the symptom? How depressed are you? Many people will come to me, I sit at those city clinics. People come and told me mood swing is a very fashionable term. They'll come and tell me, doctor, I'm having mood swings. But how severe it is? Is it intense enough to warrant help? How long have these symptoms lasted? Duration is also very important. And how often does the client exhibit these symptoms? Once in a while, self-doubt is not equal to obsession. So what is the frequency of a particular symptom? These are very important things that we must consider while we disseminate knowledge about recognizing the warning signs about psychopathology. The next one, please. Let's have a look at the mental health professional team. We have a very good act nowadays, the Mental Health Care Act, which has defined the mental health care professional team. And one of them, of course, is a psychiatrist. According to this Mental Health Care Act, a psychiatrist is a medical practitioner possessing a postgraduate degree or diploma in psychiatry, awarded by a university recognized by the UGC or recognized by the National Board of Examination, which is DNB. So we can both have an MD psychiatrist, or somebody who has only done a DNB is also a recognized psychiatrist, but that has to be there. And the basic medical training of MBBS is a must, qualified to assess both mental and physical aspects of psychological problems. That is why probably you need a doctor in your team, because many of the psychiatric illnesses, so-called behavioral and psychological problems, often have, maybe they have an underlying pancreatic cancer, or somebody can have a very subcortical, subdural hematoma, or something. I still remember I saw a case. I was telling them, I was sitting at Fortis, and I was telling the emergency in Fortis, have a look. This is not just a functional illness. You have to see, probably he has sustained some injury or something. They kept on telling me, ma'am, no, it's okay. He's your case only. And then 2:30 in the morning, his uncle gave me a call to say that, doctor, since you were so, you kept on telling us this is not, this has to be assessed immediately. We took him finally to PG hospital, not in the so-called elite fashionable hospitals like Fortis or MRI. And now they did a quick CT scan and they found that there was a leaking hematoma. We are now pushing the trolley towards the operation here. So we need a bit of medical training as well in order to complete this group for mental health professionals. A doctor uses various forms of treatments like psychopharmacotherapy, of course, psychosocial intervention. This is our pleasure. I keep telling my other medical colleagues that it is our privilege. Something that you don't have or you don't want to use is that in addition to writing medicines, we can also talk to our patients. The cognitive behavior therapy maybe, or the acceptance and commitment, the principles. Maybe we will not sit with them. That will be injustice because we are not trained that well. But at least we can use some of the basic elements of psychosocial interventions along with other treatments like, of course, electroconvulsive therapy, deep brain stimulation for refractory cases of OCD, as according to the needs of the patient. The next slide, please. So we also have a clinical psychologist, a very important member of our team. According to the Mental Health Care Act, clinical psychologists must have a recognized MPhil in clinical psychology from an institution approved and recognized by the RCI, following post-graduation in psychology or applied psychology. This person will be qualified to do psychological diagnostic assessment and psychotherapy for all mental disorders. So MPhil has become a must. I mean, people are debating it, but still that is how the law stands in our country today. The next one, please. The next slide. Psychologist is someone who is a postgraduate degree holder in psychology with specialization in one of the specialty areas. We can have a school psychologist, a counselor, a cognitive psychologist, community psychologist, developmental psychologist, educational and forensic psychologist. It is a teamwork. That is very, very important. I mean, I cannot emphasize this more. So if it just becomes the prerogative of only those who have a clinical MPhil in clinical psychology, then we are making, I mean, I'm not saying that everybody would be allowed to treat illnesses. No, not at all. But we can't possibly do away with the school psychologist. Like, for example, I tell my students that social psychology is so important. I mean, so interesting. If not important, I mean, it's so interesting. So if you only read about disorders and, the different forms of psychotherapy, ERP or ACT or whatever, but then that does not complete. You just go through some of the breakthrough concepts that are coming out in social psychology, which has got nothing to do with treating clinical illnesses. So let's have them all together in our group. So it will be a rainbow group and we have to include everyone. The next slide, please. We also have psychiatric social workers who are MPhils. There is a person having master's degree in social work and an MPhil in psychiatric social work after completion of 2 years full-time course from a university recognized. Psychiatric social workers perform detailed psychosocial assessments and engage in family and group interventions. Those of us who have done our MDs in places like the Central Institute of Psychiatry and also at NIMHANS, they know how important it is to have a psychiatric social worker in their team. You can't just have an individual psychotherapy 1:1 or a group. We need to know systems therapy. We need to know how families are enmeshed in a particular patient. And without them, without a psychiatric social worker, treatment of a psychiatric patient remains absolutely incomplete. The next one. We also have lay counselors, those who have a master's degree in psychology with diploma course in counseling. They help deal with daily stress and relationship problems. They can assist in strengthening coping ability of clients to face crisis situation, but we must know the boundaries. This is important. Boundaries are important because counselors must know where they have got to refer cases, where they can stop and refer cases to a qualified clinical psychologist. That is important. And at the same time, it must be a dynamic relationship between each and every member of this mental health care professional team. We can't move without one. For example, how many clinical psychologists does West Bengal have per 1 lakh population? I'll come to a slide later on. You will find out that it's pitiful. There are very few clinical psychologists around, and most of them are congregated in the city. So unless we take care of counselors or sometimes even lay counselors, we cannot really reach out to our people who are in crying need of help. The next one, please. Not to forget the special educator who has a master's degree in psychology, following which they pursue B.Ed or D.Ed in special education, again recognized by the RCI. They mainly work in schools and mental health clinics, and they deal with learning disability, intellectual disability, communication disorders, cerebral palsy, and other developmental disorders. So, special educator is an entirely different field. And I'm sorry to say that most of the times I have seen my students who are doing their MDs, they know something about psychology, clinical or social or other types of, the different disciplines of psychology. But this portion, I'm not asking them to be special educators. But unless you know, that is very, very important. Unless you know each other, what is the other member of your team thinking? How can you possibly give a holistic treatment approach to your client? That is extremely important. So special educators, there's a dearth of special educators like anything. People think it's not rewarding enough. Everybody wants to be a clinical psychologist these days, but we really, really need qualified, dedicated special educators for our children and also for people who have grown up. I mean, we all know that the needs of neurodevelopment, people suffering from neurodevelopmental disorders persist throughout their lives. This is one lacuna I keep on insisting. And people tend to think that children with autism, children with learning disability or intellectual disability, they need help. But what happens to these children when they grow up? These are people who need help and support throughout their lives. It's a lifelong issue. So this is very important to continue giving them lifelong support and care. Children with, let's say, autism spectrum disorder or intellectual disability. And this is extremely important that we need many more special educators in times to come. That's very important. I don't know. We have important policymakers out here, and how things are being talked out. I would like to know at the end of my presentation. The next slide, please. I was asked to talk a bit about the referral pathways because, as we now know, the previous one, please. As we now know that we have dedicated psychiatrists, psychologists, social workers, counselors, everyone. But people are not reaching us. The treatment gap, if you have a look at the National Mental Health Survey, which was conducted, the treatment gap is too much. It's very high. It's in some cases, it is as high as 90 to 95%. Then what is the point of us studying so much, so many fact books and all that, if we cannot reach out to our own people? So this is something extremely important from a humanitarian point of view, that more and more patients receive the care that they deserve. And also for us professionals, we get to see the patients whom we are trained to see. That is very important. We need to we need to give care. At the same time, we need to improve on our practice. So we must really concentrate on strengthening the different referral pathways. I have thought about some of the referral pathways, but I'm going to welcome with open hands suggestions from the group today. The next slide. One important source of referral is, of course, the schools, because children spend a lot of time in their schools, and the school teachers understand which child needs special care very quickly. Problem with school teachers often is that they understand, but they don't have the nuances to how to address it. I have seen many teachers say publicly in the class, "You need some help. Go to counselor." And the child kind of, he carries it like he's walking down to the counselor. So that is not how we should do it. And it's not their fault, trust me. It is our fault because we are not educating our school teachers. I have been conducting quite a few workshops in Kolkata, not just in Kolkata. I have because I teach in a government medical college. So we did a survey with children who were in very rural corners, the schools and all. So we had prepared a small booklet for them for disadvantaged children. And they gave us happily when we were conducting workshops with them. They were so happy. They kept giving us one feedback of the other. One of the girls told me, put some chatpata recipe in that book, put some pictures. So it is very important to have that freedom of communication in schools. And teachers must be educated, number one, to identify who needs help. Number two, to protect themselves and their children from the stigma. Students should not feel, or their parents should not feel, that they have been kind of isolated when they're told that your child needs a psychologist or a psychiatrist help. In schools, we have to educate teachers about externalizing behavior problems. School refusal. Just because a child is not coming to school doesn't mean that he does not want to study. There could be tens and thousands of, not thousands, at least tens and hundreds of reasons why a child does not want to come to school. Let's not forget that childhood depression is on the rise. Children with learning disability used to be set aside, but thanks to the media, some of the very popular movies and all that, people are understanding the problems of learning disability, and we are getting more and more referrals. Intellectual functioning assessment is also very important, but teachers should be aware that just because she's not being able to handle a child does not mean we'll tell him you go to a psychologist and finish off. Or I have even seen teachers and school managements telling us that this school is not equipped to handle, let's say, a child with ADHD. That's painful. A child who just has ADHD, he's being told to leave a mainstream school because the school does not have the infrastructure to handle him. That is not it. We have to see where we can improve the infrastructure. We have to treat this child. Sometimes parents are also very reluctant. They keep telling us, doctor, we don't want to give him medicines. We don't want to do this because he is a child after all. So it is our duty to go to the schools, educate them so that referrals are generated. The next slide. As I was telling you, being a doctor myself, I know how unaware my other medical colleagues can be. I remember I was referred a case. So I asked him, he's my friend, he's my classmate. I said, why did you refer this particular case? What's the problem? Tell me. He said, this person has become crazy. Baki tum dekh lo. You find out. So he's not even ashamed of the fact that he doesn't know, he has not read up his psychiatry well in his undergraduate days. So that is, I cannot handle you, please go to a psychiatrist, which is kind of banishing their patients. Patients don't come to us happy, oftentimes, not always. Another attitude could be this, I have seen very commonly, they will tell their patients that, why do you have to go to a psychiatrist? After all, it's a stigma. And these things are basically willpower. Just buck up. Get out of your depression. Snap out of your depression. These are some of the stock terms we use. And sometimes they also prescribe psychiatric medicine, which is fine, which is absolutely okay. But then this must be done in a learned fashion. And people must recognize what are the telltale signs and symptoms. Just a neurologist will understand or a pediatrician will understand, that will not do, because this overlap, the consultation liaison must be much, much more stronger. We have to educate neurologists because there's a lot of, I keep telling them this, tell us, what is the difference between neurology and psychiatry? I said, the difference is we treat the brain and you take the rest of it. So that's of course in a lighter tone, but definitely there's a lot of overlap because psychiatric conditions are not, of course, quote unquote functional disorders. Neither is something known as it's all in the mind. The mind resides in the brain. So it's very difficult to really differentiate between what should be a neurologist's brief and what should be a psychiatrist's one. So this overlap must be considered, and we must work in close liaison. If it is a stroke, maybe, or if it is a clear spinal cord transverse myelitis and a paraparesis, then a neurologist comes in. But supposing if somebody has dementia, who will look after this patient? So these are overlapping. Or Parkinson's disease, for example, who will really look after this patient? Is it the neurologist? Is it a psychiatrist? Or should we work as a team? Secondly, dermatology. I have seen, everybody knows that the psychosomatic manifestations on the skin is extremely important. Many dermatologists, they have cases of, uncontrolled itching. Then there's a condition known as prurigo, which really works like magic if we give them SSRIs. Similarly, some conditions are purely psychological. Some conditions, on the other hand, are actually worsened by stress and strain. For example, psoriasis or chronic eczema and so on. So dermatologist is another important source of reference. Not to forget the gynecologist. I just share a small story. I remember when I was a much younger psychiatrist, and then someone in a medical college from the gynae ward, we call it the Eden ward, Eden Hospital. There from the second floor, a mother, she had twin babies, both girls, and she threw one of the babies from the window. The baby died. There was a big ruckus. Some people are saying that what kind of a mother is she? And some of them, the activists, were saying, look at our condition. I think they thought just because she had two daughters, probably her family was not supportive. That is very much possible. But then nobody was listening to me. I wrote a piece on postpartum depression and psychosis. I just went out. I walked to the office, newspaper office, Telegraph. It was Telegraph. And I told them I wanted. They were surprised. But then I was quite young at that time. But then they published. I still remember there was a scientific supplement for the Telegraph. They used to run it. They no longer do. There, they had this thing published on postpartum psychosis and depression. Unless you know that there is an entity called postpartum psychosis or postpartum depression, how will you take care? Maybe if they knew it, if the interns and house staff knew about this, they could have identified this mother who was at risk and actions could have been taken. Something as simple as the Edinburgh postpartum depression scale, EPDA. This is just a small scale and it can be applied to everyone. But at least, quite a lot, because this is such a small scale. I keep telling my gynecologist friends, please, for God's sake, apply the EPDS for all your mothers who have just had their children. If you identify any sign of depression, refer them to us. There are, of course, there's something polycystic ovary disease, which is now almost an epidemic. Every other girl has PCOD. Infertility and its treatment can be extremely painful. But, you have to, it's just the pain of it. You have to take injections, then you have to lie down, and then one failure after the other. Infertility treatment is draining, to say the least. So these are some of the cases where they need our help. Sometimes because they are unaware, sometimes they fear that if they refer their patients to us, then the patients will feel embarrassed. They abstain from referring to us, but we have to educate them. That is very important. Can I have the next one, please? The next slide. We also have to, most importantly, we have to talk to the general physicians, because majority of our patients will first go to their general physician. General physicians or family physicians are often family friends. So they are not just physicians. They are extremely supportive people to whom people turn to in times of distress. Pediatrician will recognize early signs of autism and behavior problems. And not to forget the oncologist. Many oncologists, they feel that those who are suffering from cancer or terminal cancer, it is quote unquote normal for them to suffer from depression. I keep telling them, yes, maybe normal, but that doesn't mean we are not going to treat it. So that is very important, the management of psycho-oncology, how to break bad news. We conduct workshops with oncologist friends about how to break bad news. They're very uncomfortable about breaking the bad news, even today. It is difficult. It's indeed difficult telling people that you've got maybe just 6 months more to live. But if we say we are not going to tell them, if we fumble, then these patients will later accuse us. Why didn't you tell me, doctor? I had so much more to do within these 6 months. I could have done it. So these are some of the things that people need more education about. The next slide, please. I'll just go through quickly the different psychiatric centers in India. The next one. As you can see in this slide, this is from that National Mental Health Survey. The red bars are psychiatrists, then the yellow ones are clinical psychologists, and the green ones are psychiatric social workers. Have a look. In Kerala, the number of psychiatrists per lakh population is pretty high, 1.2, which is quite good, I should say. But let's come back to West Bengal. It's not as bad as in Madhya Pradesh, maybe, but it is still quite below the mark. It's 0.6. But have a look at the number of clinical psychologists. It's very, very low, somewhere between 0.1 to 0.2 per lakh in the population. That too engaged only in the metropolitan cities. Please, psychologists of the day, wake up to this. You have to, numbers must be increased. That's important. And there must be an even distribution of resources, which is not occurring today. In the event of such a dearth of mental health professionals for our countrymen, we have to do something. We already have some existing places where we can refer, and I'll just quickly take you through some of the important elite institutions of our country. Can I have the next one, please? There are 25 proposed centers of excellence in India. We already have a center of excellence in Calcutta, which is the Institute of Psychiatry. And we have the place where I work now. I was working at the Institute of Psychiatry just a few months back. Now I'm at the Calcutta National Medical College, which is another proposed center of excellence. It is also in Kolkata, mind you. The next one. Yeah. Everybody knows about the NIMHANS, which is a multidisciplinary institute for patient care and academic pursuit, including research. Let's go to the next slide. The Central Institute of Psychiatry is also it's older, and it is there spread over 2011 acres of land. It is also, they have got a number of wards at a lot of, and we have both a very strong academic wing, and I'll never forget the library of CIP. I mean, that's there, that's wonderful. It's doing very good work in terms of community psychiatry. I mean, these institutes probably need no introduction, but there are some more in the country. Can I have the next slide? The Institute of Mental Health and Hospital, Agra, which was established way back in 1859. It's governed by the state of Uttar Pradesh, spread over an extensive ground, and well-known center for the treatment, training, and research of mental disorders in northern India. Can I have the next one? RINPAS, when we were students, RINPAS was fledgling, but now it's a beautiful institute. Apart from mental health training and research, RINPAS has a huge turnout in their OPD and indoor admission. The institute is recognized for special posting of MBBS students from different medical colleges of Bihar and Jharkhand, postgraduate students of psychology, you all know, and social work and nursing students from different parts of the country are also posted for their field training in this institute. The next one, please. Let's focus on the psychiatric centers in West Bengal. I will admit at the beginning that West Bengal is still needs to improve a lot in terms of psychiatric care. We do have some very good institutes, most of them are in Calcutta. But we also have mental hospitals outside Calcutta. Quite a few of them have come up in the last, let's say, 1 decade or so. But still, and remember, historically speaking, let's not forget that, like, for example, we'll come to know very soon, the Institute of Psychiatry is 200 years old. 200 years is not a joke. So let's have a look at some of the important psychiatric centers in West Bengal. The next one. Institute of Psychiatry, a center of excellence in Kolkata. We just recently celebrated, just 2 years back, we celebrated its 200 years of existence. So if you go back, I was wondering, 200 years is not a joke. Institute of Psychiatry is functioning as a full-fledged institute today for postgraduate psychiatric education and service. It has also been identified as a center of excellence for manpower development in mental health under the NMHP. It is now offering training for MPhil in clinical psychology, MPhil in psychiatric social work, and post-diploma and post-basic diploma in psychiatric nursing, with all the necessary affiliations being granted by the West Bengal University of Health Sciences, the RCI, and West Bengal State Nursing Councils. So this is one institute which is old, but it's still going strong. You know, it's alive and kicking. Let's have a look at the next slide. Kolkata Pavlov Hospital. This is a government organization for the treatment and welfare of mentally ill patients. Psychiatry Department of Calcutta National Medical College, that is us. We operate, we are attached to this. It was not like that. When I was RMO, then Pavlov Hospital was different, was separate from the Calcutta National Medical College. But now it is under the, it works, it functions along with the Calcutta National Medical College Psychiatry Department. It's a big place, and lots of patients are there. We need to improve a lot in terms of patient care. I hope that once that it is now a proposed center of excellence with the highest indoor capacity in West Bengal. So I hope that once the funds start coming in and more additional investment in the infrastructure, then we will probably have a nice place here too, in the lines of maybe CIP. The next slide, please. There are other government mental hospitals. This is for the young psychologists to know that we have mental hospitals at Lumbini Park, which is again in Calcutta. We have one at Purulia, Barhampur Mental Hospital, and Tufanganj. The last three ones are not in Calcutta. One of them is in North Bengal. The other is at Purulia is the south, and it's one of the lesser developed districts of the state. But there are hospitals, and because now we have more better postings and a little more spending in terms of infrastructure, there is a slow but perceptible improvement in patient care in these mental hospitals. And we have clinical psychologists being posted there too. The next one, please. The medical colleges have always been there. Of course, the RG Kaur Medical Hospital, the RG Kaur Medical College, it's very important because Girindra Shekhar Ghosh, who had worked in tandem with Sigmund Freud, he first started the psychiatry department at RG Kaur Medical College. And NRS Medical College, Calcutta Medical College, that is my alma mater. We have a separate building and an indoor and outdoor facility where we are working together. There is, of course, Burdwan Medical College and Bakura Shamilani Medical College. Next slide. Kuch Bihar Medical College, College of Medicine at Shamur Datto in the outskirts of Calcutta. North Bengal Medical College in Siliguri. Malda Medical College and Hospital, and Midnapur Medical College. So every day, I mean, not every day, that would be an overstatement, but newer medical colleges are cropping up, and we are trying to improve on the infrastructures. We're having more MBBS graduates and more and more people. That's one good thing I would like to share with you, that the demand for psychiatry as a postgraduate discipline is steadily increasing. People are recognizing that this is one stream where you can help a lot of people and you can do it on your own. This is one very important, that's very lucrative about psychiatry, that you can set up your stand-alone practice. You really don't have to depend on the large corporate hospital. You don't need it. So you can, to some extent, preserve your independence. That is very important for medical professionals today, everywhere. Because the corporates are giants, and we really have to struggle to maintain our independence and at the same time take advantage of all the improvements that we are offering. The next slide, please. Now we come to the important topic, is how to increase. We know these are the sources of referrals. Now, what steps can we take to increase referrals? The next one. Some of the things, the next slide. Some of the things I'll share with you, this is not theory. This is just simple musings and sharing with some of the ideas, and please come up with more ideas. If not now, then come up with ideas in the chat box which we can discuss later on. One very important thing is to have workshops in corporates and in schools. School workshops are very, very important. We have something known as Sarva Shiksha Abhijan, where there are special educators being posted in remote schools also. But we need to educate them. We need to talk to the teachers. We need to talk to the management so that they don't stigmatize mental illness. They are more inclusive. And at the same time, they can identify who are the children who need help. Similar workshops can be conducted in the corporate. If you ask me, I see almost at least 3 to 4 patients every day who come from the corporate sector. They're intelligent, bright people, some of them young, some of them middle-aged, but somehow they're suffering from an existential crisis. Their entire identity is focused on their work. Yesterday only I was telling someone, have you read the Identity and Violence by Amartya Sen? And if you have a single identity that this is me, my job defines me, then you are really at times, you kind of descend into a crisis. So we need to conduct workshops at the corporate so that these people don't lose heart and they can work keeping their integrity alive. That is very important. Sometimes you become like a machine. So that is very, very important. Work culture and workplace stress is extremely important. We need to teach the junior level workers. We need to conduct regular workshops with the supervisors, because some of them supervisors have come to me in the COVID time. They have said, I know, doctor, I had to, ruthlessly tell some of my colleagues, junior colleagues, to leave. But I know that this girl has a boy at home. She is a single mother, but I had nothing to do. So now I can't sleep at night. So what to do? So that is very important for these corporates. We have to conduct mental health wellness workshops, not just about identification of disease, but also about the positive dimensions of mental health, how they can improve their positive mental health. The importance of media, television, and print. Even today, the old-fashioned print is, is very important. Because see, I talk to the television today. They remember, people come and tell me, oh, good, I really enjoyed what you said. But if you have written an article in a print medium, then I have seen even 10 years later, an old man, maybe from far away place, he comes back, he just takes out a journal, be it Shananda or anything that's a popular journal. He just takes it out and says, Dr. Chaudhary, I had read this. This was long back, and now I feel my daughter-in-law suffers from the same problem. So print media, it outlives television and other forms of digital media, and it's still very, very important in our country. I think across the world, because the importance of print cannot be overemphasized. That is not to say that we will stay away from digital technology. If you are not, I'm not asking you to be a master. I'm not a master of digital technology, but some basics must be there. Otherwise, let's just have a look. If in these turbulent times, how would we have survived if we did not have digital technology with us? So digital technology has given us a lot of outreach, and we must be conversant. We must be comfortable with using digital technology. Use the social networking sites. Use, like, for example, a Facebook Live. Just a single webinar, how many people will attend? But once you broadcast it on Facebook Live, then so many people can watch it. So the outreach becomes much more if we can use judicious use of digital technology. We can also have interdisciplinary meets. That is very, very important. We have already talked about not just doctors, not just psychologists. Talk to other people. Talk to your friends. Conduct a short kind of a meeting over maybe an afternoon tea or something, where we can discuss. This need not be a formal meeting. We can meet at a coffee shop or something, where we can talk about some of these issues. Interdisciplinary meets, not just doctors, not just mental health professionals, but people we know. And sometimes we can just, without even their understanding, we can instill some of the awareness about mental health issues. The next slide, please. How to control community stigma? Let's say we have done everything. We have conducted workshops. We have written small leaflets in the language of the people, what they understand. But still, people, they want to come to us, but they are not comfortable because they feel if you come. This is true for many illnesses, not just psychiatric illnesses. It's true for HIV. Used to be true for HIV. Now the stigma is much less. So community stigma often prevents us from seeking help, even when we know that we direly need help. How do we take care about it? The next slide, please. Educating people, of course, it's very important. The knowledge is power, and knowledge takes away stigma. The more you know about it, that many of these mental illnesses are biologically mediated. They are not because you are a weakling. They are not because you are a sissy. So then people get some kind of, power, that knowledge gives them the power to know that mental illnesses can occur to anyone and everyone. So that education takes away some of the stigma. Mainstreaming of mentally ill people. I still remember in CIP, we used to have Manukamana, which was a canteen run by our patients only. And I remember when Maggie passed away, how much people felt sad because she was one of the, old timers who used to serve coffee and remember who likes what kind of, what flavor of coffee, or the strength of it. So mainstreaming of mentally ill people, this will actually improve our understanding. And the more we mix together, the more we start liking. So that things have taken place in Bengal. We have, like in Pavlov itself, we have a laundry run by them. We have a tea shop which is run by some of the inmates of Pavlov. And at the corporate sector, one of the places where I work, this is known as Caring Minds, they run a beautiful place called I Can Fly Cafe, where it's mostly, there is someone on top, of course, but it's mostly managed by people, but by children and adults with special needs. So when we see them with our own eyes, then it becomes real. Just reading 2 lectures and, studying leaflets won't help. But if we see that someone very close, I can see this person is serving me with a smiling face. I know, okay, fine, there's nothing wrong about it. One thing as a practitioner of mental health, I have noticed, like those who have a family member with a mental illness, they're often less, critical about other people. I know a boy who married his old childhood sweetheart. He has schizophrenia. So he asked him, Jay, you are marrying her. She has schizophrenia. How will you manage? I just simply because I knew that he's going to marry her anyway. He said, my mother also suffers from depression, so I know what it is. So as simple as that. No knowledge, no special training was required. Just a good heart. And because he saw his mother from such close quarters, he knew a little bit about mental illness. So mainstreaming, let them come out in the open, employ them in chai shops, employ them everywhere, then things will be much easier. Integration and inclusion in occupational areas. We have people with disabilities, we have reservations for them, but how much of this reservation is claimed for by people with mental illnesses, tell me? Most of the times, people with physical disabilities claim those reservations in job and other places, and also in the MBBS course. People with disabilities will get certificates and enter the MBBS course with their reservation, but this will not happen with somebody who probably has an autism spectrum disorder. Rarely these reservations are claimed for by people with mental illnesses. So this is something very important. Advocacy is very important. We have to advocate for them. We who are here, it's our duty, I think, to stand up and advocate to the government and elsewhere that it should not be a blanket term, people with disability. People with mental disability, whether they're getting adequate representation or not, while entering an MBBS course, while entering any other course for that matter, or in a job. Otherwise, this will not happen. Similarly, we have to support people by treating them with dignity. That's very important. Family and peer counseling. Family needs counseling. Friends need counseling. Just if you say, this boy has got ADHD, he should go to the school counselor. Not enough. We have to have maybe a class with everyone. See, this is ADHD. It is nothing to be, it's not just because he gets distracted and sometimes he runs around, he's abnormal. It's not so. So teaching the peers is also extremely important. Inclusive schools work a long way. I remember a child, he had a severe disability, both physical and mental, and he had Tourette. So he used to suddenly shout out. But then his mother was saying, initially the schools he was being bullied, but now that once he started growing up with those boys, those same boys who were bullying him are extremely protective about him nowadays. So he has got a very protective, friends group around him. Those same boys who used to pull his hair and make fun of him, now that they have grown up, their maturity level has increased and they have all worked together like a brother. So now in class 9 or 10, these boys form a protective armor around them. So inclusive schooling, it's extremely important. We should have more and more inclusive schools. We have very good, I must say with pride, that we have some very good inclusive schools in Bengal. Focus on the positive, the importance of stressing on positive mental health. When we talk on the media, when we write on a paper or something, we must focus not just on mental illnesses. That is what we are trying to do nowadays. Please, budding psychologists, do the same. Don't just write about depression. That will bring you a few patients, but also write about how to, the aspects of positive psychology. How, good people can be corrupted. So how can we guard against things like, what we call the Lucifer effect or maybe groupthink. So these are some of the simple things that people must be made aware of so that everybody can identify with psychology and psychological issues. Please focus on the positive aspect of psychology, on the non-clinical aspects of psychology, like I just now said, social psychology and so on. Be aware of one's attitude and behavior. Be aware when you, as a human being also, be aware, talk to your friends, talk to your brothers and sisters. If they have something wrong in their attitude towards people with mental illness or mental health as such, try to correct it without sounding too intrusive or preachy. The next slide, please. Some of the ways we are coming to the final slides of this presentation. So just bear with me for a few more minutes. Some of the ways to improve mental health services. The next slide. Can I have? Yeah. Some of the suggestions to improve mental health services in our state and across the country are better infrastructure and advanced treatment facility, of course. No amount of stigma reduction will work if they find that a person with schizophrenia Whatever remains different from you and me, he's talking to some unknown people. He's not taking care of his personal health. So you have read schizophrenia can be taken care of, but with your own eyes you can see somebody he's not getting better. He has lost his job. He just moves around in tattered clothes. So that will not help. So advanced treatment facility should be available to people in general. People must see with their own eyes that yes, even if you have a mental illness, you can stand up. You can be a school teacher. You can be someone who's being respected. So for that, what do we need? We need advanced treatment facility. That's very important. Coordination and peer consultation among mental health professionals. That is something we tend to get. I have got some very good friends. Fortunately for me, because we were all working together in CIP, so I still have very good friends among clinical psychologists here. So this coordination and peer consultation among mental health professionals is extremely important. Unless we work together, we will not fully understand our patient, number one, and if we don't respect is there, but the camaraderie, the friendship between mental health professionals is something that I often find is missing. It's like you are different, I am different, I respect you, you respect me, end of the program. It's not like that. I have to work with you in tandem. We must work together. Virtual, now this is the time for, like I was saying that if this was not allowed, this online consultation, where would I be as a practitioner? Because I love my practice, not I just don't teach. So virtually, talking to people, virtually consultation. I was thinking that, I don't know, someday I suppose the pandemic will be over. Can we still have this online consultation with some precautions, of course, due precautions in place? Because it's a pleasure to be able to reach out to your patients who would have loved, some of my patients who are staying maybe in a faraway part of the country. Previously, I used to tell them, no, I cannot see you. But with the help of online consultation, all they need is a good internet connection, which is it's not so difficult. Nowadays, everybody has a smartphone with a WhatsApp, if not anything else. So virtual consultation has become a boon for me, and I think for some of my patients also. Increased capacity and financial aid. Of course, nothing moves. It's economy is stupid, as famously said. So nothing moves unless you have the right kind of financial backup. The next one. We must also reach out to the underprivileged. So it's not about treating, posh people in Calcutta or in Bangalore or in Mumbai. We must reach out to the underprivileged, because only then will we become all self-sufficient. Long back, I remember when I was doing my WHO fellowship in Australia, so one of them were telling me that the difference between you and us is that in your country also you've got many rich people, but we all know about it. I mean, the gap is too much, and that probably I was told that this is a real difference between a developed and a developing country. So we must reach out to the underprivileged as well. The next slide. How can we reach out to the underprivileged? I remember my previous speakers were saying it's not just about running clinics. We have to go to them. We must go barefoot. We must conduct home visits. If that is not possible for us, we can train up counselors. We can train up the existing infrastructure that is there. We have got ASHA workers. We have got Anganwadi workers. And trust me, I have worked before. When I was I had done my MD, I remember at CIP, and I had worked with the health service for 1 or 2 years. There I was in close contact with these ASHA workers and others who were working in the field. And initially they're very reluctant. Oh my God, don't put another pressure on my shoulders. I'm already taking too much. But then if you gradually make them interested, because mental health is something that interests everyone. So if you can tell them, no, you don't have to do much. Just see if these telltale signs 1, 2, 3, 4 are there. All you have to do is suggest a visit to the district hospital psychiatrist. Then they will happily do it for you. We can also have treatment camps, something that we conduct very frequently, and improve the existing infrastructure. That is what I was talking about. India has a lot of programs in place, a lot of projects in place. There are the human resource is good. We just have to make good use of it. And there is no other way. We have to integrate mental health care and mental health awareness into the existing health workers. Without that, there is no way. We cannot have a separate cadre of people who will be voting. That's not possible. It's not feasible. That's it. Can I have the next slide? Shubho had asked me to talk about the scope of employability for budding clinical psychologists. I am not a master in this, but I'll suggest some of the simple ways where we can employ. We can think of employment. The next one, the next slide, please. Yeah. The corporates are hiring clinical psychologists nowadays. Media, of course, especially the advertising media. That's very important. They are coming to us every day because advertisement industry heavily depends on human psychology. So here the social psychologists can be at work. So make your way to make your presence felt so that they are hiring. But these are these are some unexplored. Everybody has to become a clinical psychologist and see patients in a chamber. Think of diversifying. Think of employability in the media, the schools, different welfare organizations. Of course, hospitals or polyclinics are there. Research establishments and forensic psychology. I used to find it very, very interesting when I was a student. So in our country, somehow forensic is very much, I used to be a crime fiction and detective fiction fan. So forensic psychology is something extremely interesting and it tests your intelligence to the hilt. So if you can really do something about forensic psychology, where you can join and do some work, this will be wonderful. At least you can approach the corporates, the media houses, schools and NGOs, the research establishments, and on your own try to bring up some of those preventive programs. The HIV, we have the NACO, that is the HIV programs. They are hiring psychologists every day. We just have to be aware and maybe push ourselves a bit. The next one, we must also try to form a liaison. At the beginning, I said the advantage of a psychologist or a clinical psychologist or a psychiatrist is that we don't have to depend on corporates. Then you can ask me, then why are you associated with corporates in addition to government hospitals? But then I tell you why. I'm associated with them because I want to get the best of both worlds, plain and simple. So we must also try to get the best of both worlds. We must improve the lives of between the private and the public sector. The next slide. We already have private-public partnerships in terms of testing. We have the CT, all the medical colleges, they now have the MRIs and other many blood tests are being done in association with the private big players in the hospitals. They are getting a lot of patients. In turn, they're charging less. So it's a mutual win-win situation for both. Inclusion of private health practitioners in government. I have seen many private health practitioners who have established themselves. They have a huge practice. Now they want some recognition from young people. So if we ask them to take some lectures, they'll be very happy, and we will, and our teachers, our students will also. At least our students will. They will gain a lot. They will get to know how private practice goes. And some of them are so good, trust me, they have not joined the medical education service, but we can always ask them, invite them to take classes, which can be done at the government level itself. The psychology students, they do internship with us at the government medical colleges, but I have not seen them doing internship in corporate hospitals. Some of them go to the Apollo hospitals, but the places where I go, it's not yet that much in vogue, but it can be done. Internships can also be done in the corporate hospitals. You must know how the world runs. It just doesn't run within the confines of a government hospital. How things are done, you must be aware of what's happening, not just in terms of treatment. There are other aspects of patient care that you must learn. Get a taste of it before you can just jump without learning how to swim. Inclusion of health scheme is also very, very important in the private sector. Provision, next slide. The provision of telecounseling and consultation has come as a boon for all of us, like I have told you. The next slide, please. Teleconsultation refers to the use of information and communication by mental health professionals for the exchange of valid information for diagnosis, treatment, and prevention of mental illness. With this pandemic outbreak, the Medical Council of India has permitted the use of telemedicine, and I would like to believe that telemedicine is here to stay. If we can ensure the safety of patients and take care of the necessary precautions like identity proof and proper documentation, then mental health, this remote care or teleconsultation will really help a lot of patients. Why should people who are staying far away not get the best possible help, tell me. So it is very important, and I hope that people will, at least for psychological or mental health care, teleconsultation can easily be done. We really don't have to, touch is important, but even without that, we can take some basic care. We can take good basic care of our patients. So I hope telemedicine stays. The next slide. Some of the strengths and limitations of telemedicine. I think I'm already running out of time. I just want to tell you that we can have video-based telemedicine facility, which is the best, because then you don't miss the non-verbal cues. But if people don't have a smartphone, we can talk on audio consultation. Sometimes text-based, like chat-based or emails, that can also be done. Next slide, please. So I think I have finally finished this presentation. Can I have the next one? I'm free for all discussions at the end, and I'm not saying I'll be able to answer all your questions, but I would love to listen to them and get feedback from the young minds who are listening, and of course the senior ones who I'm sure will be able to contribute. It's my pleasure to be present in this forum of psychologists, and I'm really eagerly waiting for feedbacks and interactions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. It was really wonderful and such an experiential deliberation. It's really very nice.
Thank you so much.
We all know that we are running short of time, and we have some questions in our chat box, few questions also in our YouTube live. So we'll now move on to the Q&A session. And Shubhabrata is going to take care of the YouTube live queries, whereas I will be taking care of these queries from this particular chat box. However, the queries I encountered till now, I think most of the queries are very well explained and answered already. Due to paucity of time, I shall prefer to club some questions. First, I would like to hand over the Q&A first part for the the YouTube live link to Shubhabrata.
Thank you. I must say that it was an excellent suggestion from Sam sir, who said that you can take the feedbacks before so that we can incorporate it. And so most of the speakers have incorporated whatever queries they had. But as we are running short of time, but still we have a few queries. But most of the queries are not mentioned with the speaker. So I'm just going with the queries. There is a question from Vidya Sagar, who says that how can we are able to manage emotions, and how these challenging situations are, what are the practical ways of managing emotions in this challenging situation? Yeah, any of the speakers can take it up, I presume.
Sam sir or Professor Prathama? I think maybe both of you.
I think I saw the question. Can we be able to manage our emotion? Why? And what are the challenges for managing emotions in practical ways for common people? I think this very complex kind of a question. With what I can say is that emotions are can happen in relation to the things that happen around, and the emotions, some of them are innate. So, for example, it's developmentally, as I grow, I learn to cry when there is a need, and I learn to laugh when it is needed. So these are culturally determined also. So I think it's you learn over a period of time how to manage your emotions. Unless certain situations are quite overwhelming for you. For example, a loss of I remember working with the tsunami affected people. The child was crying because he lost his toy. So for another person who can easily get different toys, the emotions will be different. But here is a boy who is unable to bear the loss of his toy in the sea. So for whether it is common man or irrespective of the status of the person, I think emotions are there. Some of the emotions are needed too. For example, if I have a loss, grieving situation, if I'm holding back my emotions, some of the theorists would say that might get held back in your own body. For example, if I don't grieve at the time of the loss of my father or mother or a dear one, it might get stuck in different parts of my body. That's one way of expressing it, and that's when seeing people from a Gestalt perspective, seeing people, if they're the way the posture is, the way they handle their body can give us an indication as to where they are holding their emotions. But we don't tell them that, okay, this is what is happening, but we allow the person to unravel that stuckness and help the person move. So it's important that one goes through experiencing different emotions. Usually our tendency is to say, oh, don't cry, don't cry. No, what's the problem in a child crying? The tears are there for the person to let out. So we don't have to ask a person to hold back the emotions. Let the emotions appropriately expressed. I think I don't know whether Dr. Kishore has got something more to say.
Okay. Thank you, sir. I just move on to the next question, which is probably for Professor Kishore. There is a question that what are the probable psychosocial interventions which can be carried out in the educational institutes first? And with that, there is another part question which says that teachers with all administrative and academic duties, is it possible for them to carry out counseling of the students? And if yes, then how?
Thank you for such a wonderful question. I would like to first allude to what Professor Prathama has said in the very beginning. Whenever we talk about delegating the responsibilities to other professionals, we need to see that they are not already overwhelmed, number one. Number two, that it is not coming as an imposition that someone else is dictating that what they have to do. So from that point of view, I do understand for a mental health professional, it is a single child. But for a teacher, there could be a big class of 30, 60, something like that. So in this context, but at the same time, being innovative, being creative, we can do wonders. To begin with, any foundations for change in the behavior starts with a relationship. That is where it is applicable in the context of a patient-professional relationship, or a teacher-student relationship, or a parent and the child relationship. Nobody would listen if we suddenly pop up and say, hey, look, you change your behavior, or you come to me that I have set an answer. So before we set out, the first thing that one has to learn is that how do we develop that rapport, number one, trustworthy relationship. And since the co-speakers have talked about, also school mental health program, reaching out to the school. There is this earliest model, the school mental health program that was initiated at the Central Institute of Psychiatry, where the team used to go to Bokaro, Hazaribagh and nearby schools with a multidisciplinary team of psychiatrists, clinical psychologists, psychiatric social work under the supervision of the senior faculty. And what we used to do is that at the very beginning, just identify, if there is any child who is not doing well in academics, because the moment we go and say that we are going to identify some psychiatric problem, that they would say that it's not my responsibility, number one. And second thing, it is not linked to occupation. Because there is an intricate relationship between emotional and problem behavior and occupational productivity being affected, when we offer to them that, kindly identify children who are not doing well in the class, are having difficulties in adjustment or interpersonal peer or conduct or behavior, that is the first step that we are going to help them. Second thing, largely what we see is that the emotional behavior problems in the context of school are related to learning and formal education. I'm not saying that children will not experience other kind of issues. Majorly, this is here. So how can we educate teachers to change their perspective in terms of appreciating three things. One, who is this student, the learner? What are the kind of both strengths and weaknesses this child has? It could be the age, it could be the language cognitive developments, or it is their gender, or there is proficiency in the language of the instruction. So the learner characteristics are very important. And the second one is the learning process itself. Like, some children are good in auditory, multidisciplinary, or visual, tactile, or some people need curricular modification. So how this learning process is taking place. And the third one is teacher characteristics. Even I've seen in the chat box somewhere that the adult's mental health is equally important. So when it comes, these three dots are joined. As a teacher, they need to be aware that attitude which I showed on WHO model, their understanding and positive attitude, willingness to engage children is important. And then comes the appreciation of the needs of the student, and then any modifications are required. These three things could be effectively implemented only possible in the backdrop of the school having conducive mental health policy. And now again further, what are the basic things that we can do? Simple thing, whether a student has done, we know the Almada 7, wherein, having good night's sleep, having early breakfast, and then physical activity, these things are important. Can anybody in the school take this responsibility of finding the first thing in the school would be the teachers giving good eye contact and social smile, number one. Number two, finding children if they had their breakfast, because most of the children, the school structures are such that nowadays I notice children's stomach don't open up. They go to the schools without having their breakfast. So having breakfast is important. And whether they are having adequate opportunities for recreational and physical activities, these are the three things. And then comes stress management, things such as listening. And when we are listening, it has to be done very tactfully. Like, we cannot have an identified counseling center or something. Our experience in CIP when I was a trainee was that the students will be stigmatized, like, oh, abhi inka call aa gaya hai wahan jane ke liye. So how can we weave in our program into regular class in terms of open discussion and debate, like what Professor Prathama has mentioned, even Sansar also was mentioning. Like, there is no secrecy about it. We built a narrative about whether somebody is having anxiety, somebody is having speech difficulties. You have open narratives, and then in a very confidential manner, very subtle manner, we offer them help. And this help could be listening and empathizing. And the last one is as per the need, like very essential signs already, co-speakers have spoken about. How do we identify and then give a referral for a psychiatric or clinical psychology, oblique, family-based interventions, etc. That referral needs to be done. So these are largely, I'm talking about the framework within which at a behavioral level, many things can be done. And lastly, peer support group is very, very important, and regular contact with the parents. And one thing I'll say, and then I'll conclude this answer, is that parents and the school need to inculcate this habit of meeting the parents on regular basis, because the moment a call goes from school that a parent is being called, their anxiety level speaks up, whether you are a clinical psychologist or a psychiatrist. The reason is invariably schools invite only when the child is making some trouble. No school will say, come, your son or your daughter has done something good and we want to talk about. None of them. So how do we preempt this kind of anxiety? So the negotiations and dialogue and debate also has to happen for more positive thing in a more open and subtle ways. So these are the things I have to offer, and others can take and correct if anything need to be.
I think, teachers, when given the additional responsibility of counseling, unless they are properly trained and have a bent of mind for it, it may become a failure. So we have trained more than 300 teachers in our, when I was working with JSS University, we had, the JSS is a group of, they had about 300 schools. So we had asked for representatives from each school to come and teach. Some of them were sent because they were creating problem for the school. So the teachers were sent for counseling training, hoping that they will get corrected as part of the training. But that is not our objective in imparting them the training skills. So the effort that we put, I don't think has really served the purpose for which we initiated the program. And secondly, the dual role creates a problem. So teachers are taught for teaching. So they have to talk all the time. But when we talk about counseling, they have to get in the role of listening, which for some people that may not be possible. There are some people who have done work wonderfully well. We have incorporated them in our further training as model teacher counselors who have been liaising with different people and helping their children out a lot in the community.
Thank you, sir. We are really running short of time. I'll just take very quick 2 questions only from the chat box. One from Tushar Banerjee. He asked, as parents, what will be the role of us to improve our child mental capacity? As any one of you can answer, as he hasn't mentioned anybody's name.
Mental capacity, first of all, we must know what exactly we mean by mental capacity, because most parents look upon mental capacity as intellectual capacity. This is something which is happening. I keep noticing that as long as your child is doing well academically, there is nothing else. And in the process, we often they don't learn that they also have to help with the household chores. That they have to, fold clothes, that when mother comes back from work all tired and all, they have to offer them some sharbat or something like that. So these small things are taking a backseat. So that is something, first of all, we must be very clear to ourselves what we mean by increasing the mental capacity. It's not just their intellectual ability and their performance. We'll be sending them to abacus and all those things. But we will also teach them some basic self-help skills, and we must also teach them how to connect. I mean, for your own good, I would like to tell you that so most of the big things who are hiring, they look upon this social intelligence part also. So actually, materially also this pays. So if you want to improve the mental capacity of your child, first and foremost, I would say instill in him a sense of independence. Another very important thing, I have seen our children are asked to say, and they are taught unconditional obedience, which is not good for creative thinking at all. We all know that in order to be creative in the long run, children must be given the freedom to raise questions. If the child says, Mama, what you say is wrong, pause, listen, say, okay, fine, I'll read up and come back to you next day. I may be wrong. So that ability to raise a question, and also the freedom to make mistakes. Unless you grant them the freedom to make mistakes, they will never go for out of the box thinking. They'll just whatever is there, they learn and get good grades and finish off. So that is something somebody was telling me, and I do think that the more you know about the world, it is inversely proportional to your academic grades. That's a sense, that's humorous way of putting it. But in the long run, teach your child to raise questions, give them the freedom to make mistakes, and also help them to connect. Make them, that is very, very important, that they can talk. Sometimes some children they have social anxiety, as we all know. So that way you can't tell him go connect and make friends. Not that. Help them. Not teach them how to initiate a conversation maybe, or something like that. Or if you find out your child is too obsessed with performance, becoming a little self-centered, take care. So to improve the mental capacity, it is important to sit with your child. Don't give him long lectures. Sit with your child. Spend some quality time, which includes, I have seen with my children also, I may not have the time to make them very good food every day or thing, but at least if they know that at the end of the day, when she will sit with me, we'll study together. We'll study together in a democratic environment, kind of. That improves their mental capacity. And maybe when I'm driving them to school, I can tell them small stories from my childhood, or in general stories, which somehow instill some moral values, which is important nowadays. I think that somehow children are somehow learning that the only thing that matters is if you are thinking about others, you are being stupid. That is not true. I am sure, I know psychologists are here, stalwarts are here, social psychologists will tell you that the ability to think for others actually serves us in the long term. Short term, we may win by being selfish. Long term, no. So these are some of the things, the values, spending time with them, teach with them. I think it is important to teach your children. No matter how tired we are, at least 1 hour a day if we can teach. Just don't delegate the responsibility onto private tutors. So these are some of the things more important than sending them to an abacus class or having 10 tutors or something like that. I'm sure there will be dissenting voices, so we can discuss about it some other time.
Just to quickly add to what
I just want to add.
Yes, sir.
I just want to add one of the during this COVID times, an executive of a big company, he connected with me. He said that I met him 30 years before. I didn't remember, but he said when he was an adolescent, he was brought to me by his parents, and I had assessed him, and I told the parents not to disturb him, allow him to the way he wants to grow. I'm talking about the adolescents, not about younger children. So I think we need to know the potential of the children, adolescents, and allow them to grow. Provide the environment by which the individual can grow so that he can reach his potential. Otherwise, I may be guiding him through a wrong path, which may not be the appropriate one for him, so that I may be curtailing his growth. In addition to what Dr. Padma said.
Yeah, I also strongly echo the same ideas, just to carry this, memorize in a very simple way. One, nurturing mutually enjoyable relationships are very important, in which it could be physical nurturance, emotional, spiritual, because nowadays so much emphasis is just alone on cognition, but we are forgetting the fact that we are as much emotional well-being, wherein the understanding and regulating our own emotions are very important. And in that process, what morals and values that we are getting, and also interpersonal adjustment as well as intrapersonal adjustment. These things, can come through a strong foundation of relationship between the parents and the child, and then a lot of learning opportunities as the children are growing up. The sense of autonomy and agency has to be given to them. Sometimes we wrongly misinterpret our culture, wherein perhaps that this is, this goes against the social norms, or they cannot gel well. But on the contrary, as Professor Chaudhary has said, that thinking for others and that pro-social behaviors, empathy, it's really a good protective factor for mental health. And lastly, two things that we need to identify is that in the literature, it comes very strongly: paternal substance use related disorders and maternal psychopathology, domestic violence. Whenever we come across these things in any form, that we need to confidentially take them into family intervention plan, and then offer holistic thing, because even every parent may have their own issues and challenges. Sometimes what we ask them is that, can you keep your conflicts just to your private room, so that the child doesn't get witness to that. And definitely there are certain non-negotiable things such as abuse, exploitation, and domestic violence, because which can have both direct as well as indirect impact on this. So what parents can do is that, apart from providing responsive caregiving, that nurturing learning opportunities are very, very important. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am, for the wonderful discussion. Actually, the questions we received more related to the discussions we just had, like the role of family, role of parents, and role of schools, teachers, and peers in inculcating the mental health issues, as well as how to counter the problems. So, due to lack of time, I'm not going into detail, but thank you all for this discussion. I hope the participants gained their insights and some kind of cue how to get the direction or the answer to their queries, and where to go further, where to refer further. And on this note, I would like to hand over the session for vote of thanks to our respected coordinator, Dr. Roshan Lal Devangan. May I have you, sir, please?
Okay, thank you, Urvi. Thank you so much. I will not take so much time.
It's all right. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So really, we are very thankful to all the speakers, despite their busy schedule and this Sunday holiday and the brief notice. They accepted our invitation to give a speech, and it was really enlightful for us. And really, I would like to thank our Vice Chancellor, sir, and Director IQAC for his input, and I especially want to mention our colleague Ananya Paul for her input when we were structuring this program. Our registrar sir has always been supportive to us, so really we thank to him. And our system administrator, Mr. Asif Ahmed, despite his illness, he arranged this e-platform for us. And yes, our DPO sir is still there, so I would like to thank to them. And yes, a special thank to Mr. Subrata Poddar. Actually, he connected all the speaker and the person, so he quite efficiently moderated the program. And especially, I would like to thank our convener, Ms. Varsamitra and Mrs. Urbi Mukherjee for wonderfully organizing this program. So thanks to all from my side. And yes, last and but not least, thank to all the participants for their queries and having with us. So again, looking forward for you. Thank you so much. Urbi, yeah.
Thank you.
Quickly, if we can have the organizing team and the speakers, if we can get a photo, virtual photo, if they can on their videos so that we can have a quick screenshot.
Yeah, mine is on.
Yeah.
I'm not able to see.
Probably.
I'm also answer.
Yeah, Pratma ma'am has gone.
Oh, okay. Whoever we have, we are taking that as our. Thank you. And I would like to thank
Good to see all of you.
Dr. Devangan for taking the initiative. We have been doing this, and thank you, sir and madam, for your cooperation. If we in this virtual, as if this virtual meeting, small virtual meetings are really bouts of happiness which we get, and so many people have been connecting. So thank you so much from our side.
Thank you.
Yeah, I could realize that from the chat box. People are saying that nice to see you after a long period of time, etc., etc. Good. Yeah.
Okay, sir. If we have permission, then we can just conclude the session, sir.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks again.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
See you, sir.